everybody. Welcome on into the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live once again. How is everybody doing today? Sorry for being so late. Good morning. Mike, LL, you do the floating Keanu Reeves hand when taking pictures? Did I do that? I don't think I do. I don't think that's true. I usually grab people by the shoulder. I don't know what you mean. Mike, when are you going? You probably caught me in mid-motion, honestly. Mike, how was the DSA meeting? Chat, unfortunate, but it was beyond capacity. The fire marshals made us turn people away. So if you were in the Southern California area, we did a whistle kit assembly. Here, let me bring one. We have ourselves a whistle. So let's talk about this real quick. Let's say debrief. It was so full, the fire marshal made people leave. I got turned away, but I got a whistle. Honestly, I'm sorry, chat. I'm sorry. So what we were doing was building whistle kits, both in English and Spanish. At the whistle kit, we have ourselves a zine, and in the zine, it explains all the different ways, you know, what we're doing, etc., etc. Maybe I should go full screen for this. Hold on. Big Mike. We have the Solidarity Melts Ice zine, and then we have a QR code. I don't know. Can you scan that? I'd have to turn on focusing. Can you guys scan that? Okay. So we built that. It includes all the different stuff we're doing, like the codes of how you whistle, what the whistles mean, hotlines, etc. We have an updated red card. This is a Know Your Rights. It explains the difference between judicial warrants and your rights, how to prepare, exactly what to do. Okay, this card is blank. Uh-oh. And of course, the most powerful weapon we have yet, the whistle, which on the other side has a phone number, which I'm not going to show now, for our ongoing ICE monitoring efforts. 3 short whistles, ICE spotted. 3 long whistles, ICE kidnapping. Exactly. So, obviously, this is just the beginning. This is what we call low-level civil resistance. We're trying to basically walk right up to the line of protecting our community without giving them anything super easy to blame as like being an initiator of violence. And this is how we have to do stuff like this. We have to do one of the things that I think is very unsatisfying for a lot of people. It's something that you need to understand is that we have to go up the escalator of resistance. Just because you or I might believe that it may require some other form of resistance in the future doesn't mean that you can skip steps. Okay, we have to take the steps up. We have to go through the procedures. We have to show that the laws are no longer applying, that they're being violated. We have to show the delegitimacy of the system to regular people. We have to show that liberals are incapable of forming resistance to fascism, that they're inbuilt collaborators with the system. We have to go through that process. We have to be shown as good faith resistors that are trying to do the right thing and do them, you know what I mean? We're not adventurous. We're not people that are doing violence because we think it's cool. Mike, are you able to take a picture of the QR code and pin it for chat? I'm going to do something even better. If you are in LA, I want to tell you that tonight, it is the 19th. There is a DSA Ice Watch Community Patrol training. And it's going to be online. So if you're curious about how all this works and exactly what we do, because DSA LA is now beginning to do anti-ice patrols in Los Angeles. We are preparing for the eventual Insurrection Act or other federal attacks against Los Angeles. So if you want to know more, we're going to be doing a DSA LA Ice Watch Community Patrol training. Please only go to this if you're in Southern California. If you're not, actually, you know what? I think since it's online, it should be okay if you're curious. So, you know, I think it's just a Zoom meeting, so I think it should be fine. But it is tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So you go ahead and sign, especially if you're in Southern California, you have no excuse not to sign up for this. Canadians are getting visa-free traveling to China. God damn it. I've never been jealous of a Canadian before. All right, so the DSA LA shit was incredibly successful. Thank you, everybody, for going. If you went and you didn't see me, it's because it was too full. I was there the entire time. Actually, I'm lying. I got there at 2:06. I was standard Mike from PA 6 minutes late. I couldn't get in, dude. Oh, yeah, I know. It was too full. Sorry, chat. I didn't know. However, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. I think there was a bit of a surprise at the level of people that are ready to fight ICE. And, you know, I want to say it was 300 or 400 was the capacity. So, you know, as I've said before, there is a lot of people that are chomping at the bit to fight against fascism in America. They need to be prepared for larger groups. DSA needs to step up. I think there is, you know, for those of us who have been fighting and organizing for years, you start to, you know, you see the same faces and you expect a certain range, right? When outside circumstances get a lot of people that are sympathetic to you off their ass and into the space, it can become overwhelming and hard to link us online training. I just did. So we're going to be doing this at 7:30 p.m. tonight. I'm gonna go. I mean, I'm just gonna watch, you know. And as I said last year, this is the year that I am going to get more and more involved in DSA. Wherever I'm at, I'm going to be showing up. So now I'm currently in LA, so that means LA is going to have to deal with me. Sorry, LA. All right, we'll talk about this again later. So other things happened over the course of the weekend, chat. I went viral in China. Does anybody have the Bilibili link? Mike from Beijing. Last week, chat, we talked about the kill line being real. About the kill line being real, and it's kind of all of you, chat. You know, I got 15K here on YouTube, but on Bilibili, I think last I checked, we were around, 50K, if not more. Basically, people were surprised to see that I was saying, no, it's completely real. I got you. Thank you. I might have to, chat. Look at these motherfuckers. They're getting all my views. 123,000 views. They're getting all my fucking views. Yoink. I got farmed. Mike's gonna DMCA Bilibili? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right, I don't have a Bilibili account, chat. I need to get myself a Bilibili account. Did you see the U.S. stocks are at a global sell-off due to Trump telling Norway he wants Greenland because not winning the Nobel Prize means he no longer thinks of peace? This just dropped, chat. This literally just dropped. God damn it. God, I didn't see this. All right, hold on. We'll get on that. So anyway, we're going viral in China. All right, editors. We need to take advantage of our virality on China, okay? We need to get our virality in China. We need to make shorts. I need to start streaming on Bilibili. One of the commenters posted their pork dinner. Nice. AI Mike speaking Chinese.
40的美国家庭在生死线上摇摇欲坠，这就是现实，这就是赤裸裸的真相。没错，我为我提高嗓门道歉，我为我情绪上头道歉，但我就是既愤怒又感到羞耻。美国人。
Yeah, I definitely, that's how I sound in Chinese.
竟然接受这一切，这真让我感到羞耻。我们看看太平洋那边的中国，一个曾经比我们惨得多的国家，但他们干了一场革命，现在别人成了世界超强，而我们呢，是个正在烂掉的超级大国。
That could be me if I learn Chinese, man. Why haven't I learned Chinese yet? Bro, it even has your same energy. LOL. Of course it does. Mike will never sound like this IRL. How dare you? How dare you? That's you with really good pronunciation. Nice. We got to get to the Hassan. We will no longer doubt Mike from Beijing. As I said, the reality of this is I kind of like Mike from Beijing more. Sorry, Mike from PA. I do too. All I know is that This is the era of me winning. This is the era of me winning. Mike can't pronounce common Spanish words. There's no shot he even has an accent like that IRL. My German isn't so bad. You got 500,000 views. I'm gonna ban you if this is like a poop sock. Children knocking on doors on a cold Halloween night asking for food. Delivery workers suffering from hunger because of their meager wage. It doesn't sound too great in Chinese, I'm afraid. Imagine like an old school BBC News announcer voice, but trying to sound angry. What in God's name is a poop sock? It doesn't matter. It's ancient Twitch lore. So it seems that I went even more viral in China than I thought, which is good.
国力被用来给大企业灌水，而有钱人却在入侵别的国家，绑架别国总统。而与此同时，40%的美国人却艰难度日。你们怎么不好出来？怎么不他妈的火大？到底要怎样你们才肯动怒？好吧，查德，我跟你聊个事儿。美国所谓的杀戮线是千真万确存在的。中国网民这回可算说到点子上。
Yeah, this isn't AI. This is actually me speaking Chinese. Sorry. I held it back, but unfortunately, this is me. This is real. I just made the video again. The reason why you can't... Yeah, I don't want to learn Spanish. That's an imperialist language. Ew. That's why I don't want to learn Japanese either. Imperialist language.
好吧，咱们的纽约时报文。
Okay. All right. Anyway, so we went viral in China, and if you haven't watched the video that is going viral in China, what the fuck? You're supposed to be my subscribers. The Chinese think this video is good. Do you think you're better than the Chinese? And the point is, I prefer to watch you live. No, but we watch you. You watch every single minute of my stream live. You watch every single minute of my stream live. You never miss any of it. Mike, I'm on a 70 stream streak. Well, then you obviously are addicted to Mike, so you should watch it again. What, you absorbed it all the first time you watched it? You didn't miss anything? You got it all? If I gave you a test, you'd get 100% on the test? No, you need to study this shit. Watch it again. And if you're watching it that much, share it to other people. Unless you have a photographic memory, perfect recall, no friends, and you watch every hour, you should be on the fucking YouTube, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Yes, I was on a 50-day streak until you randomly decided to stream on a Saturday. Oh, do you not have alerts turned on? Are you not in the Discord? Have you not subscribed to the announcement channel? Did you miss the very many opportunities to get pinged? All right, anyway. I'm joking around, and I fear that some people are going to not realize I'm joking. I didn't even know you had a YouTube. I'm trying to figure out YouTube with a bunch of other people that don't know YouTube, and we're building up our skills. Right? We're building up our skills slowly over time. I just got a YouTube, got told by a Canadian that Huawei CEO deserved being kidnapped, that she was trying to steal Canadian 5G technology. I'm shocked, and now I wonder if we should export via EVs to Canada. Okay, first of all, that's just somebody with a marrow brain, okay? You should react to that TikTok too. Good point, Julie. Good point. We need to make TikToks. We need to make a kill line TikTok and short. Get on it. Also, I did another segment on China. Get on it. There's a new feature on YouTube where you can A/B test your videos with different titles and thumbnails, see what works better. I don't know if you've tried that feature. Indeed, we did. And this is actually the C title. And this is the one that worked. The reason why this video has any views at all is because it's getting picked up in search. People are searching for the kill line and they're finding this video. It's not recommendations, and it's not my subscribers. It's search. There's people searching kill line and coming to this video. Like literally, YouTube hates my guts, and you can tell that it does. You can tell that I'm suppressed at YouTube. I'm on some sort of flagging situation, and it's very annoying. So in order for this channel to grow, we're gonna have to grow geometrically slow over time. It's so fucking annoying that they hate the left so much. Jesus. I mean, of course they do, but like a third of the comments are in Chinese. You're getting turbo boosted because of the Billy crossbows. Turbo boosted? Barely. Chinese, Americans, Palestinians, Indians, Koreans, Jews, and everyone else in the world have the right to live with dignity. What angers us is that there's no longer a matter of nationality. The U.S. government has become inhumane. These people are harming our fellow human beings. True. Will you link the Billy Mike from Beijing kill log video? Thank you. Here you go. Hold on. American blogger, Mike, the kill line of Chinese fire is true. 40% of American families are struggling with the line of beheading, which is a cruel reality. Okay, the translate is not hitting. Right now, chat, 123,000 views in Bilibili. And this is the one you need to link to Hassan. Oh, that's a cancer link. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. I'm sorry, chat. I didn't even check before I hit paste. Okay, maybe let's get a better link. Jesus criminy. The oil pipe boss mic is full of fire? I don't know what that means, but okay. Yeah, that's too long. Here. This is the better link. Thank you, chat. Thank you, chat. Is he good? We need Hassan to understand. Oil pipe boss. I don't know what that means. I really don't know what that means. Anyway, long story short, we're winning. Are we winning? Yes. Yes, we are. I mean, I was talking to Vio this morning and I was like, you know, I have been on the right side of these issues for so long. And a lot of the times it felt like it was me with a couple people against the world, you know, just us. And I didn't chase after people for clout. I did not change my viewpoints based on what the sentiment on Twitter. I just continued to have these positions. I kept using my intellect and my reason and my morality to try to arrive at the best possible position. I didn't become unhinged. I didn't become a hermit. I did not disconnect myself from the rest of society, but I continually just kind of rode uphill. So many people went against that, and most of them are gone now. If you want to grow, you should do a left-wing reaction to heated rivalry. There's an explosion of reactors getting a ton of views. I know it sounds like a joke. No, that doesn't sound like a joke. That's actually a really good point. I haven't watched the show, so I don't know it. And I'm not gay. But I did play hockey growing up. I did skate around in the boy aquarium. Straight people watch the show too. Straight women watch the show too, I think is what you mean. Why did you say it like that? I don't know. I mean, that's unfortunate, you know? You know how much easier my life would be if I could pretend, you know, if I did the whole like, oh, I'm actually, I'm diverse. No, I'm not. I'm white, Christian, male. Not really Christian. I'm an atheist, but you get I was raised Christian. And I know Christian theology. Sorry, I just like to click the Iron Man mode. I like to click hard difficulty, right, chat? Just kidding. All right, what was I saying? That's the easy mode. That's cinematic mode, dude. That's cinematic mode. I don't even have to like hit the buttons. I don't even have to hit the buttons and time. It just automatically succeeds. You're culturally Catholic? Yes. Knowing Christian theology is how most people become atheists? No, I don't think that's true. I think a lot of people become atheists because they just don't want to do what they're told, you know, which is totally it. All Mike kill line vids. Damn, this shit is going mega viral in China. All right, editors, we need to slice more of this. We need to do reactions to me being viral in China. I need to be better with I need more things to react to. Okay, where was that guy? Hold on. All right, I need to reply to this. What the fuck? I was typing. What the hell? Make comments? It just, whenever I hit space, it goes to the next video. Yeah, I need to comment. Jesus Christ. I hate TikTok on the computer. It's so bad. All right, let's react to this and then I'll comment. What are your thoughts on some unions being low-key racist? They're made up of their members. And if their members are racist and there's nothing being done for political education, that's not going to get fixed. That being said, unions are always far to the left and create a left wing of the population they represent. That's always been the case. And in fact, been a important struggle between centrist Dems who don't want unions to be anti-racist and leftists who do want unions to be anti-racist. All right, let's keep going. Let's react.
American household who got an American flag.
All right, hold on. Let me make a new title. Mike from Beijing. Memes in the title, people are going to be confused. That's the fun part. You need to have inexplicable shit in your video so that people comment on it. Come on, you don't know engagement bait?
From your house, please go to YouTube and search Kill Line. You will see this video. And please take a look of that video with your critical thinking. See if that video is lying or not. The flag you put in from your house, whatever you believe that flag represents, it does not represent the reality. You are supporting a very evil system.
And I think one of the things that's frustrating is like nationality, like the idea of having a community that we're all a part of, that believes in something, that cares for one another, that you are supportive of, is in many ways innate to all of us. All of us have, like, I think most of us have a little bit of pride in where we come from, you know, and love our community. Unless it has abused us, unless it has mistreated us, unless it has like alienated us, most of us have that kind of pride. And right-wingers and capitalists take advantage of that, and they turn it into a Schmittian, you know, friend versus enemy distinction, us versus them distinction, instead of recognizing being an American, that's 350 million people. That's a lot of people that you're saying you care about. But that like patriotism has now been turned into xenophobia. That sense of community has been turned into oppression of the other. And this is why America is in such dire straits. We don't love our country because we care about our fellow Americans. We love our country because it's an expression of our own, what, ambition, our own greed. And this is why America's in trouble. Because there's something that I've heard before and instantly alienated me from other people. And I'm sure you guys have heard this before. Why should I have to pay for your kids to get an education? I don't have any kids. Why should I have to pay for your health care? And I think that it disturbs me for a couple reasons. One, basic morality, basic humanitarian feeling, basic empathy, where you don't care about other human beings unless it profits you right now in this instant. And the second reality is that it's a stupid opinion. If you don't educate children, then they don't have any skills. They can't our society is built off of us cooperating with each other. Somebody with skills and knowledge offering that to the community in exchange for other people's skills and knowledge. That's how we have a society. If you don't educate kids, they don't have skills. Therefore, they cannot serve one another. Therefore, our society is poorer. And if somebody doesn't have any skills and they don't have any hope, they become hostile to the society that has rejected them. That's where crime comes from. That's where poverty comes from. So not only is it evil because it is self-centered, it's also stupid because it results in a society that's worse off, more dangerous, more criminal, less capable, less productive. It's just doubly stupid. And this is what's wrong with America, is so many people don't seem to understand that they live in a society. They have some sort of like mythos where I didn't get any help. I paid for all my stuff. Why do you need me to pay for your stuff? It's mind-bogglingly stupid. And that's kind of the conflict. 65% of Americans understand that we should care for one another. 35% of Americans are Trumpian fascists, and they're psychos, and they're racists, and they're bigots, and they're hostile. That is the division of America right now. And right now, unless the 65% can get their shit together, unify, and try to build something better, the United States is in trouble, but even more importantly, the world is in trouble. You think the United States is going to stop with Greenland and Venezuela? Did Hitler stop with the Sudetenland? Did Hitler stop with Austria? The United States of America is going to keep going. Did Hitler stop when they remilitarized the Rhineland? The United States of America is going to, once it is profitable for us to steal, we're going to keep stealing. I don't have kids, but I want future leaders to be intelligent and have a sense of belonging, value, and worth, so they lead with empathy and compassion instead of greed and hate. That is common sense. Power to the people, of course.
That system is eating your fellow Americans alive. And yes, if one day the revolution starts, I hope the household who got an American flag in from your house got robbed first. American household.
Now, I think one of the things that people need to understand is that Americans are so close to fragility. One of the things they do is they perform hostility to the poor as a way of mentally distancing themselves from those people. Because if you're a middle-class person and you have a student loan and you have credit cards and you have a car loan and you have a mortgage or rent, you're fine, and your life may even from the outside look prosperous as long as you have that money coming in, as long as you have that job, as long as that paycheck keeps coming in and you can keep making your payments on time. If you get lucky and that goes on for 10, 15, 20 years, you might even end up well-to-do. But if there's ever an incident, ever an accident, a recession, a sickness, an illness, anything that knocks you out of working for a period of time, you're fucked, right? So if you get lucky, you could end up on the other side and it works out. But for a lot of Americans, that anxiety of what if the universe deals me a bad set of cards? What if my dice comes up snake eyes? That fear, that anxiety is hanging over their head like Damocles' sword. And so they, in order to protect their ego, in order to protect their fucking mental health, they have to performatively disdain the poor. And they can exercise and get catharsis of that anxiety by targeting poor people and going, look at those pieces of shit. Look at those people. Why do they need help? I don't need any help. When actually, they do need help. They need a lot of help. And if anything ever goes wrong, they're in trouble. All right. So we're viral in China, which is badass. And I'm glad. Now when I go to China, we need to build up our Chinese fans. Which reminds me, I need to post. Make sure you're in the video chat. Make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click on these videos when you see one of my videos getting recommended in your YouTube chat if you're ever watching YouTube and any of my videos pop up on the side, make sure you click them, watch them through. Do me a solid. Because I'm anti-Israel, I'm on every suppression list known to man. So I need you to put in the extra effort.
斩杀线，我想你晚上斩杀线英语到底怎么说？什么 Alice line， 什么 Q line， 我觉得美国人会听不懂。我想一个词叫 financial cliff， 经济悬崖，就 financially everybody's on the cliff。这里我跟那个 Walmart， 因为我觉得沃尔玛是一个比较公平的采样。如果我去采访流浪汉的话，这都 biased。如果我去 Beverly Hills，that's pretty biased。Walmart is like lower middle class， 就 everyday people 嘛 ，normal people。然后聊一聊这个 financial cliff，see
how。What's my fan channel policy? You can post stuff as a fan. But if you get too good at it, you have to work for me. No, I mean, obviously, also you need to make me look good. And you have to be willing to take down anything I tell you too. That's it. So, I mean, there are some stipulations. I'm not going to make you take shit down. Also, you have to link to all my shit and make sure that people actually know where the content you're getting is coming from. These sound onerous, but they're really not. They're very reasonable. Chatter's worried about their fan channel more than the OG. How about we boost the OG first and do that later? So true. Boost me, but so true. If you think, I'm added, here's my general feeling. I want to get more presence on other platforms, and that requires me doing more work, which sounds like a drag. This comment on your YouTube video about the author at ICE is insane. Hold on. Is it one that I liked? Okay. Hi, Mike. I'm Chinese and a fan of the blogger who coined the term kill line. Let me tell you about the situation. He was just an ordinary Chinese medical student studying in the U.S. After the term kill line was reported by the American media, he was immediately followed. He wasn't sure if it was American police. Simultaneously, ICE agents rushed to his residence and ransacked all his belongings. He was forced to go to the Chinese embassy, stayed for a day, and then bought a ticket back to China through the embassy. He dared not return to his residence, so he didn't take any luggage, as the ICE agents might be still lying in wait, which they were. His visa was perfectly valid, and he wasn't an illegal immigrant, but we all know ICE doesn't care about that, and the Chinese embassy do this too. Therefore, they could only arrange for him to return to China. The term kill line he coined was enough to get him arrested and have his visa revoked. Americans think America is a free country with freedom of speech. But let's look at this ordinary young man's experience. He simply filmed a video expressing his shock, nothing more. The consequence was that ICE searched his residence with his luggage, preparing to arrest him, and ultimately he was forced to return to China. By the way, I am Uyghur, and I'm shocked every day by the false statements made by the Western media. Of course. And this is something that we've known happens because it happened with multiple people regarding Israel. They criticized Israel, and they got arrested. Mahmoud Khalil, who has a green card and the spouse of an American citizen who's at Columbia, an Ivy League university, for a master's degree, he's being targeted for deportation. He has American citizen children, American citizen wife, he has a green card, and they're trying to deport his ass. Freedom of speech does not exist. And the reason why you can't say, well, he has a visa, we can revoke your visa at any time. So every American citizen who has a relative who is on a visa has to worry about their family being punished if they speak out against the government? That's why you can't draw those lines, dumb fuck Asmongold. You have Canadians in your orgs. You speak out and then I suddenly start deporting the people in your business and I start going after your business and going after every non-American. You think that's legitimate? All right, let's keep going. People are showing me this.
How they feel about it, and I just get some real footage. Boys, Walmart 这是一个公平的采样 Lower middle class people come here. 我们是一个 random day. You know, let's keep it fair. Hey, how's it going, man? Do you mind if we do like a quick interview real quick?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you do for a living?
I actually work here.
So you're just taking a lunch break or stuff?
No, I'm actually here early.
Oh, got it. You get 2 days off a week or?
Yeah, I'm off 2 days a week.
Oh, hell yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking like what's like the hourly rate
Hourly rate to work here?
for your position?
It starts off as
I need to get myself a Bilibili account.
$17, I want to say. That's what it starts off as. But it can like go up. It fluctuates.
Sure. So basically the reason we're doing this video is because like in China there's like a really trending term. It's like going viral. It's called a financial cliff. So basically that means like they're saying most Americans, they seem fine financially, but one emergency event can like knock you off track. Like if you got sick, you need surgeries or you got
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going through something right now with my car because someone did a hit and run on my car. The second day I had it off the dealership.
Oh, you got a new car and you experienced a hit and run.
I'm still going through the insurance on that. Because the hit and run, I didn't get the other guy's insurance because he literally hit my car and totaled it.
Oh, it's total? It was that bad?
Yeah, he totaled it.
I thought it's like a minor damage.
No, it was parked against the sidewalk, like right here, right? He hit it so hard the back 2 tires went on the curb.
Oh my.
Yeah, no, it was really crazy.
That's why in Chinese culture, we always like to save a lot of money just for like incidents like that.
Right.
Let's say like you lose your job tomorrow. How long could you last with your current savings?
Oh man, not long at all. Less than a week, I feel like even, honestly.
Like literally like less than a week?
Probably, yeah, because, I pay like things, and bills and rent, and like you get like a phone bill too, that's why everything costs money,
Yeah, that's exactly why there's this term, because the housings, the credit cards, phone bills, insurance, property taxes, and interest if you're doing credit cards, like do you find it hard to keep up with let's say like a typical Walmart job?
No, I think I'm doing good, like.
By the way, chat, every American would be like, yeah, what's wrong with that? If I don't work, I immediately lose everything and I become homeless. And if I get sick and I can't work, I lose everything and become homeless. What's wrong with that? Should have saved money. That's freedom. What, you want to tax Elon Musk just to make sure that everybody has health care? What are you, a communist? That's the American perspective.
Because I could get groceries, I can still put food in the refrigerator, I can still pay what I have to pay. So honestly, I think like I'm good right now, with the Walmart job. But as of like right now, like it's good to put food on the table and pay bills.
So you do kind of live like a paycheck to paycheck lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean I have savings right now. It's not like anything crazy, like.
If you have anything less than 6 months of expenses, think of all your expenses in a 6 months period. If you have less than that in a high interest savings account, you are living paycheck to paycheck. $1,000, $2,000 is not savings. And if you're like, well, Mike, that's so much money. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because what if you lose your job and you have a little bit of trouble finding a new one? If you don't have that money liquid, if you don't have that money available, then you could easily end up out on the street. That's what the recommendation is for people. How many people have 6 months of expenses liquid? Very, very few people. Very, very few people. What is a savings account? Yeah. Might look into becoming a political grifter. Okay, so here's what you need to do. You need to go to college, go to law school. You need to work in road construction. You need to run for office. You need to work as a political organizer, campaign staffer, policy person for 10 years. Then you need to debate Destiny 6 times, beating him every single time. And then you need to stream for 7 days a week for 3 years. And then you need to make the most correct predictions in all of 2024 presidential election. And then once you do that, you need to take on Nazis, the largest, right-wing fascist political commentators and psychotic schizos for years at a time, and then and only then will you be a success. Good luck, buddy. Good luck. Wait, does that mean Destiny goes to jail will prevent all future grifters? So true. Yes. I know. It's just something I like to remind them. In fact, every single one of my debates with Destiny, you can go back and watch them, and you'll see that I was completely right about literally everything. The only thing that I got wrong in any of my debates from 6 years ago is that I thought Bernie Sanders was going to win. You know, obviously it was 2019. There's a little bit of, that's like very normal in politics, is you say your candidate's going to win. That's just part, you know, if you look like, I'm not sure I'm going to win. Oh, I'm such a small bean. That's cowardly shit. Who does that? But other than that, you can literally go and see, oh, Mike was literally, he predicted everything correctly. I also predicted that if Joe Biden won, it was going to result in fascism coming back even stronger. I went to a DSA caucus convention this weekend. Are at least ready to do the break for the Democrats, just reporting in. Here's my general feeling. I'm all for it, but I'm also not going to sit there and like hold my dick waiting for it to happen, right? Like if a break for the Democrats is in the cards, I will be 100% behind it. But I'm also not going to just sit and wait and go like, we need to do a break, and I refuse to help anybody who runs as a Democrat. We need to do a dirty break. Like, that's childish. I can't get over the fact that Americans could have had Sanders 2 times but chose Clinton and Biden instead. Mind-blowing. Here's what you need to understand. That was baby boomers and Gen X. Millennials were just starting to get involved in politics. All right? Like, the Biden-Clinton were the last, but that was when the baby boomers were still dominant. That's what you don't understand. Is that we are living in the politics of the baby boomers right now. We're just starting to get into the politics of millennials now. Millennials are hitting their, 30s and 40s, which is when a generation starts to seize power. So we're now, that's why things are starting to get better. That's why we're getting people like AOC and Bernie Sanders and Zoran, is millennials are starting to take power. And as they do, things are going to get a lot better. So essentially, the confirmed Dem nominees are Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, Andy Beshear, Josh Shapiro, Rahm. Gonna be a bloody battle. Coughing baby versus coughing baby versus coughing baby versus coughing baby versus coughing baby. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2028 Democratic Party candidates. What I will say about this is AOC is going to, unless AOC, listen, it depends what AOC shows up. If the AOC of 2024 shows up, she's cooked. If the AOC of 2018 shows up, or even of 2025, she's gonna win. Okay, like if she shows up and is like, oh, let's all get along, I want to be nice, I'm the nice one, she'll lose. She shows up and she's like, you're a fucking scum, you don't want to, you like ICE, you like Donald Trump, you have, if she goes up there and she has sharp elbows and she's dunking on these guys, she'll win. She goes up there and is like, oh, why can't we all just get along? She'll lose. The examples are dumb, but how do you strategize voting for Dems? When to and when not to? Because you chose not to push for Kamala. I understand why. I just don't understand the strategy of when to vote and when not to. Oh, okay. That's a good question and very easy. I vote purely for ideology, and I have a long view. I understand politics is going to continue on. I will vote for ideological opponents in very specific strategic situations that don't destroy my own credibility. So I would say vote for Biden in 2024 because he was at least making gestures toward the left. He was pretending like he was listening to Bernie and AOC and the left in general. And getting rid of Trump made sense. And I didn't think that being seen as a Trump supporter was going to build my credibility in the long run. It was going to damage my credibility in the long run. However, in 2024, Kamala Harris is a genocider. And I'm not going to sign on to doing a genocide, destroying my credibility for all time. So I drew red lines that are extremely easy to fill. No genocide. She refused to do that, so I would not support her. Why? Because I knew she was going to lose anyway. And she's going to lose. Why did she lose? Because she supported a genocide. I knew that Kamala Harris losing without my support and the support of many prominent left-wingers was going to enhance our credibility for the long run. So that's why I decided to do that. Because ultimately, yeah, there's a lot of damage. Also, I couldn't have saved her. If Hassan and I had said, vote Kamala Harris, it would not have saved her. I want you guys to understand that. We could not have saved her. AOC said vote for her. Bernie said vote for her. We could not have saved her. All we could have done is destroyed our own credibility. We could not have saved her. The reason why we could have saved her is because she was doing morally reprehensible shit. And she wasn't giving us anything where it felt like the left had any influence. So if you gave up your vote, even though she was spitting in your face, you made yourself powerless. So I decided that the combination of how evil she was plus how bad she was as a candidate equals cannot support that. I also understood that when she lost, the Democratic Party has no leader, which gives us a tremendous opportunity to seize the initiative and possibly seize control of the party. The American politics is very top heavy. Whoever the president is dictates the political conversation and the political Overton window. So if you win small seats, you really don't have a lot of power and you can't really accomplish much. Very few exceptions to that. And the reason why is because the way that taxes are collected in our country is the overwhelming majority of money comes from the state and federal level. So if you win at the local level, you're handcuffed by whatever the policies are at the state and federal level. So if you want to do good locally, you have to win power nationally. Does that make sense? So ultimately, I support people who are my ideological allies, who are going to advance the policies that I propose or create conditions where we're going to get another good attempt at seizing power nationally. Kamala Harris losing has provided us that. It's also not something I could have stopped. Do you understand that? Like, I could not, if I had gone back in time and Hassan and I had said, ignore the genocide, vote Kamala. There was 1 million people saying that. There was 1 million people already saying that. All that would have happened is everybody would have been like, Mike and Hassan are sellout scum. Mike and Hassan don't give a shit about the Palestinian people. And she would have lost anyway. So anybody who says like, oh man, if only you lefties had said this. No, because it was wrong. And everybody who believes in justice and humanitarianism would have looked at us and said, you're pieces of shit. And they would have been right. Taylor Swift supported her for fuss. I mean, come on, of course. Would that mean these midterms are really important to impeach? Oh, absolutely. I mean, of course. Here's the thing. I want to check Trump. And the Democratic Party is the party that is the most empowered to do so. But in order for Trump to be checked, you actually have to have Democrats that want to check him. It's not just that Democrats have to win. The right Democrats have to win. Democrats that want to fight Trump instead of capitulate to Trump have to win. So it's not just that Democrats need to win. We need a certain type of fighting Democrat to win. Anyway, I don't know if I explained it well, but basically, for me, it's important that I tell the truth to my audience. To me, it's important that you all understand reality as it actually exists. I have some influence, but not enough to change the fucking president. But what I can do is I could put down my marker and say, here's what we believe, here's why, here's what the consequences of your inaction are going to be, and then step back. And when all those things come to pass, say, see, we were right. So that more and more people are persuaded to our way of thinking, which is, in a nutshell, if the left wants to win, if you want to stop Trumpism, you must have an expansive, ambitious agenda for the working class and for peace. And it must be unabashed, and you must be sharp-elbowed in arguing for it. You must oppose the corporate Democrats and name them that way. You must make the neoliberal Democrats like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris the butt of the joke, as well as Trump. We're not going to be able to win with anything less than that. Virginia governor ended ICE cooperation. She's a liberal who won recently. Do you support her? No, I do not support her, but this is good. All of these are all fine. Okay, this is most of this list is bullshit. End police cooperation with Trump's ICE. I don't believe this is true. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think this is a lie. Also, Brian Tyler Cohen supporting Abigail Spanberger. What a fucking fraud he is.
Because he's out of touch? Hassan's totally out of touch. He is. He's completely out of touch. Like, I'm sorry, but nobody who had polo lessons as a kid grew up working class. I'm sorry. You don't understand what it's like to be an average American. You don't get it. And that's fine. You don't have to, right? But don't pretend like it. Don't pretend like it. And also, by the way, a lot of other streamers too, they want to be beyond that. They want to be celebrities. They want to be seen as, like, you know, these important people. It's sad. He's jealous because he's out of touch. Hassan's totally out of touch.
Asmongold sits at home surrounded by filth, but he's a multimillionaire. He's more out of touch than Hassan is. He sits in his suburban home and he hides. Hassan goes out and meets regular people on the street. Now, he grew up privileged. And he was always transparent about that. But it's his policies that are in touch with regular people. That's what makes it, you know what I mean? He supports policies that are against his interest. Asmongold, the multimillionaire, supports policies that are for his interest. Now, I didn't grow up a millionaire. My mom was 22 years old when she had me. I had to pay for, I left home at 18. My parents never gave me anything. When I went to college, when I went to law school, I paid for it out of my own pocket. I put books on credit cards in my name. Am I in touch? I worked in road construction on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Am I in touch? Does that make me in touch? If there's anybody who bootstrapped, it's me. And to this day, I still am paying down debts that I took out to get to where I am today. Because there was a period of time after I did all that where I was not a success. There was a 5-year period where I had nothing but debt. Am I not more in touch than you, Asmon Rat? That's why I support free college. That's why I support universal health care. Because I had, and Asmongold probably knows what this is like, I had a premolar go bad, but I didn't have dental insurance and I couldn't afford a crown. So I had to get the tooth pulled. So what the fuck are you talking about? I've gone through what it really means like to be an American. Actual poverty. I don't think that's right. In fact, I think that's evil. And just because I make money now through the stream that I have, that puts me into the top 5%. I remember where I came from and I go, you know what? That's fucked up. That's fucked up. That when I was 29 years old and I couldn't afford my dental crown, I had to have my teeth pulled. Why didn't I put it on a credit card? Because I was maxed out. I didn't have any more. I didn't have any money that I could pay. So it is what it is. I remember what it's like to be poor. I remember what it's like to be less than paycheck to paycheck. I remember what it's like to come home sunburned because I was wearing 50 SPF, but it didn't matter. It was July. I was getting cooked by the fucking asphalt. It was 130 degrees over the hot tar. And my spindly arms felt like they were vibrating apart. And I was broke. I woke up at 5 a.m. to do that job. So is there anyone more like, and that means that I believe in taxing Elon Musk because he's a fat slob. He shouldn't have $500 billion. He hasn't produced $500 billion worth of value. The stock prices are a bubble propped up by the Federal Reserve's low interest rate policy the entire period post the Great Recession. All right. And we should be taxing Elon, and we should be taxing Jeff Bezos, and we should be taxing Asmongold to provide a good quality education to every child, healthcare for every American, good public transit, social and public housing. Housing is a human right. And these are not pie in the sky. They exist in rich countries all over the world. America is the richest country in the world. Why are so many Americans living like Asmongold? Except Asmongold does it by choice. That doesn't make you in touch. That makes you mentally ill, senile squalor syndrome. Why don't you take some of your millions of dollars and hire a shrink? You need it. Asmon worked a couple years as the IRS. He worked a government bureaucrat job, and he's trying to say that he's a working man. Shut the fuck up. Now he's out there saying people should be put in concentration camps instead of taxing Elon. Why? Because Elon retweeted his post. What a fucking worm you are. You sold your soul for a retweet. You fucking worm. You pathetic groveling scum. Like everyone in history, up the ass of the powerful. Pathetic. He worked twice during tax season at the lowest level. Oh, he was like oh, okay. So he worked as a temp is what you're saying. I have a campaign announcement planned for Friday. Can I do that here first and talk about the tax the rich package? Hit me up. Oh, hey, Ryan. Let me add you as a VIP. I think I have a VIP slot or two. Oh my God, I hate Twitch so fucking much. They have the worst systems, I swear to God. Okay, did I make him a VIP? I pushed the VIP button. Did it work? Okay, thank God. Hassan is richer than Zach, plus he fucks Kiki LA chicks, but Zach does not. It makes it one of us. I mean, Asmongold, honest to God, cannot get a professional prostitute to spend time with him. Because why? Because he won't even shower. And they don't want to get sick. Because you can't have sex with someone like that. You'll get a horrifying urinary tract infection. or scabies or like some other like virulent sexually transmitted disease. So like Asmongold, he lives in the life he chooses. Can I just say this? People say that Asmongold lives the life that he chooses because they want to condemn him and say that he has like poor morality or whatever. I want to step back and say Asmongold doesn't even have the courage to choose. He lives the life he lives because it's the easiest possible path. He's ruled completely by his appetites. He's not even really a man, because a man is a master of his own destiny. He makes decisions. He does things. He just sits around on his computer because it's easy. It is inertia. He doesn't make decisions. He doesn't perform actions and make choices because he doesn't have the capacity to. If he wasn't such a virulent racist and scumbag, it would be pitiable. You know, America's not a functioning society because Asmongold has not been put into an institution. A functioning society would have him in some sort of like rehab for video game addiction and senile squalor syndrome. And the community would be tenting his house to exterminate all the pests. Can you imagine the amount of rats and cockroaches he's sent over to his neighbors' homes? Think about how many like colonies are evolving within his home. What a pathetic worm. Ultimately, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, you know, if I were in charge, we would be prosecuting these people just like Julian Streicher from Der Stürmer. You probably need to bulldoze his whole ass house at this point. Wouldn't it just be better to burn it down? Like, obviously burning a house creates a lot of toxic fumes and things. But at a certain point, I feel like bulldozing it would be like exploding the hive and sending infestors everywhere. Black mold destroys your immune system. I mean, those popcorn ceilings, let's just say life expectancy of Asmongold is not very long. If you, you know what I mean? Like if you describe Asmongold to a psychiatrist, like a data researcher psychiatrist, and you put all the comorbidities together, let's just say life expectancy, not long. Evil never dies. Wrong. That's what liberals tell themselves to cope or why they can't do anything. Evil dies all the time. Evil dies all the time. Here, let me show you.
这是最后的斗争，团结起来，到明天，赢得那熊孩儿，就一定要实现。同胞们，中华人民共和国中央人民政府今天胜利了。从来就没有什么救世主。
Okay, sorry, chat. We're not going to watch this again. You get my point. Like, the idea of evil never dying. No, it dies all the time. It dies all the time. Let me tell you. Trump surviving 2 assassination attempts disproves this. There was not even one real attempt. One guy was basically Asmongold. Didn't even have an optic on his rifle. And the other guy was a Ukraine liberal. Those are not attempts. Those are not attempts. Do you think the attempts were fake and staged by the deep state? No. I don't think they were fake. I just think they were incompetent. I was making fun of the idea of them being actual attempts. I mean, by the way, one of the problems the left has is they are not violent. We just don't believe in it. So in order for a leftist violence to occur, every other possible avenue has to be fully exhausted and clearly exhausted. All right. And that's just the way it goes. That's just, you have to accept. If you're going to be a leftist, you need to understand that leftists require every single petition to be filed, every single procedure, every single appeal to be exhausted, every single election to be, canceled. Everything has to be tried. All right. We're not going to do any violence, and they still won't do violence. Violence will have to be done on them first. It'll have to be clearly unfair and unjust. You just have to accept that we are going to have to go through these processes. We can't skip a step. And welcome to being a leftist. You're going to see, oh no, Donald Trump is setting the troops on standby. Oh, that's just the way it goes. Regular people, liberals, leftists, can we try civil disobedience and protest? And can we do our whistles? We got to do it. We got to do it. We have to go through the whistles. We have to go through the appeals. We have to go through the elections. We have to go through everything before any kind of left-winger is going to recognize violence may be necessary. That's the way it goes. And that's not bad. That's good. I like being on the good guy side. But the good guys are dumb. That's what makes them good. The fact that we the fact that we treat people with dignity, that we keep our word, that we try to have dialogue and conversation and empathy. That's why we're the good guys. Is it annoying? Is it painful? Is it bullshit? Yeah, it sucks sometimes to watch evil do evil shit and go, we need to fight back. And people being like, well, what if we do a petition? That's what being the good guy means. A lot of right-wingers and a lot of evil people mistake kindness for weakness because they're only kind when they're weak. So this is something that has happened to me many times in my life, is people mistake my cordiality and my my kindness and my generosity as me being me being weak or me being pushover or me being whatever. Like, people have made that mistake many times. In fact, people are making that mistake right now. I choose kindness. I choose generosity. I choose friendliness because that gratifies me. Being a moral, upright, virtuous person is a self-motivation of my own. I want to perfect myself. I want to be the best version of myself. I do it for me. Doesn't mean that we can't fight. We can, and we will. Evil people can only imagine generosity or friendliness as a ploy. This game theory problem will change the way you see the world. I talk about this all the time. I talk about the prisoner's dilemma all the time. In fact, I already have my strategy in the iterative prisoner's dilemma is called the grudger. The grudger is a type of cooperator that is successful in iterative prisoner's dilemmas where there is a very high level of assholes or betrayers. When there is a very high level of assholes, when there's a lot of betrayers, there's a lot of scum, the best strategy is to be a grudger. And what does that mean? It means that I cooperate, but if you fuck with me once, I hate you for life. And I never forgive. Now, in a society that has a lot of cooperators, the actual best strategy is called the copy kitten, which is a cooperator forgives once, will forgive people for betraying them, and then try to cooperate again. But if you keep betraying them, then they finally push back. So copy kitten actually is somebody who fights back. Don't let the name fool you. A copy kitten is somebody who fights back, but they also forgive people. The worst strategy in the prisoner's dilemma is what I call the Nancy Pelosi strat, which is the always cooperate. The Nancy Pelosi strat or the Democrat strat is the worst strat. If you never, ever fight back against evil, you will be exploited. When is the last resort for you guys? They are already murdering you, kidnapping you, threatening allies as World War III. The answer to that question is everybody thinks that we're going to have midterm elections in November where we're going to be able to take power, at least part of the federal government, away from Donald Trump, and then he'll be a lame duck. That's what liberals currently believe. And you're not going to convince them that it's not going to happen until November. Sorry, but I'm just telling you, the reason why people are not fighting back is they believe they have a system in place to check Donald Trump, and it's the midterms. So until the midterms are disrupted or stopped, people are not going to fight. I just want you to understand that. Now, obviously, I'm going to try to push the most left-wing candidates I possibly can from now into the midterms. I'm also going to be preparing, as I said before, with mutual aid organizations, prepare self-defense. I think that the midterms are a point of rupture. So I don't have faith that the midterms are going to go off well. Okay? I don't. However, liberals do. I just saw Jay Bowie post something. This is this faux leftist at the New York Times. Probably one of the people I dislike the most. Because I hate fake progressives. Now, fake progressives will oftentimes say things that you agree with, and you'll think of them as an ally, but they are actually your most virulent foe. If somebody is a progressive right now, it's because they reject democratic socialism. They reject AOC. They reject Bernie. They reject Zoran. If you're to the right of Zoran Mamdani right now, you are our enemy, and you're fucking evil. Now, I'm not talking about regular people. I'm talking about New York Times columnists. Jay Bowie is an especially evil type of person because he's trying to like convince people that are frustrated with the Democratic Party and Trump that he's on their side. But his entire purpose is to take up space. And then in the moment of clarity, he's going to side with the establishment. You'll see. But anyway, he said something like Donald Trump can't cancel the elections. And he was explaining. Let me see. Fuck, I need to find this. I saw a clip on TikTok.
I have a little fact for you. It's a history fact, of course. We deal in history. Earlier this week, President Trump sat for an interview with Reuters where he said something interesting. Asked about the upcoming midterm elections, he said, and I quote, "It's some deep psychological thing, but when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms." He then boasted that he had accomplished so much that, when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. We shouldn't even have an election. Later, at a White House news conference, a reporter asked Carolyn Levitt if this was something that he was seriously thinking about, and Levitt said no, it was a joke.
The president was simply joking. He was saying, we're doing such a great job, we're doing everything the American people thought, maybe we should just keep rolling. But he was speaking facetiously.
Of course, those of us who have been following Trump for a while know that he will often float something insane as a joke and then back off of it if there's pushback, but lean into it if there's not.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one.
With that bit of intro out of the way, let's talk about the objectives of this video. Now, my goal with this YouTube page is not just to give you my takes, but also to try to explain things about the American system of government and about American history. These are things that I care about. These are things that I think I'm pretty knowledgeable about.
By the way, chat, I have what's called the 65% of Americans theory. The 65% of Americans theory, this is my theory. So if you ever hear anybody saying it, or 2/3, 65%, whatever, this is my theory. 65% of Americans are normal. 35% of Americans are batshit crazy or stupid. Oh, look at that. Referring to the 2026 midterm elections, Donald Trump recently said, when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. Do you approve or disapprove of this statement? 14% of Americans approve, 64% disapprove, 22% not sure. Now, how do you say not sure to Donald Trump said he's going to cancel the elections? You're stupid is the answer. Or you're the type of person who understands that what's being said is incredibly anti-democratic, but you're such a strong Trump supporter, you don't want to say anything against him. So 31% of Republicans are fascists, and 32% of them are either dumb or evil with enough self-awareness to know what the question they're being asked is beyond the pale. They still don't want to go against Trump. 65% of people are normal. Bob Altemeyer's research on North Americans validates your 2/3 theory. The reality is that a third of us just need to be left behind. Like that's really it. Like it's not that they need to be killed or anything. It's just I don't give a shit what they think, and they never will have good opinions. So why are we bothering? You know what I mean? Like I don't give a fuck what they think. New Taylor Lorenz on Billionaires. Okay, we might have to watch that. It seems like a banger. Okay, let me put a new title on, which is, will Trump use the Insurrection Act against Minnesota? I think I spelled everything right. The answer to that is yes, if he can get away with it. All right, let's go back to making fun of Jay over here. All right, he wants you to know Donald Trump can't cancel the elections.
There's always more to learn, and I want to do as much as I can to share some of that knowledge with y'all. And so Trump, speaking about canceling the midterms, is an opportunity to talk both about the presidency and its powers and the American system of elections, which is often quite opaque, I think, to most people. And we're going to talk about these things with an aim.
This is like the perfect video for liberals. This is like the quintessential perfect liberal video, which is Donald Trump can't do that because I know a lot about some arcane bullshit. Now, I know more than Jay Bowie about elections because I ran in a local election and I studied election law, and I have, So I know this minutia even better than he does, but it's fine. But this is like liberal catnip. One secret law that's going to stop Trump from doing this really scary thing. So you just need to sit on your ass. Don't worry. The institutions are going to protect us from Trump. Now, I got to tell you, chat, before we continue, to be in 2026 and saying, don't worry, the Democrats and the institutions are going to save us from Trump is one of the worst takes I've ever seen. I want you to understand, everything that Donald Trump might do to the elections is going to be illegal. So what? Laws are pieces of paper unless you're willing to bleed to enact them. That's the thing that's the lesson of the American Revolution. The lesson of the American Revolution is not that the founding fathers were divinely inspired or whatever. It is they were willing to put their asses on the line to make their beliefs real. If you're not willing to put your own ass on the line, your beliefs are fucking fugazi, pixie dust. It doesn't matter. And the laws protecting our local and state elections are much the same. They are only laws that they're followed. Now, what Jay Bowie doesn't seem to understand is that Donald Trump doesn't need to block every single election. He just needs to maintain his majority, which means if he blocks elections in states where the Republican Party has power by pressuring Republican officials to go along with it, he may be able to maintain his majority. All he has to do is move the percentages a few points in his favor in order to maintain his majority. It doesn't have to be a complete cancellation of every election. It just has to be interference. It just has to be crooked. And actually, that's the best strategy. It's a far better strategy than coming out and being blunt and saying, I'm canceling all elections. It's far better to corrupt them as much as possible and try to have a questionable win, going through the symbology of the election while corrupting the process. That is what Donald Trump is going to do. That is a serious threat, and we need to be ready for that. And Jay Bowie here, his arrogant, smug dismissal of the threat is the worst possible thing that could be happening right now. It almost feels like he's an op, to be honest with you. You should be panicking. You should be setting up self-defense organizations to defend your polling places. You should be organizing poll watchers in every single precinct that you can. You should be treating these elections like Hitler. Hitler had to do one more election too, and they intimidated the fuck out of everybody. And guess what? They didn't win a huge victory, but they won enough to protect Hitler's working majority. And therefore, they were able to pass the Enabling Act, which is exactly the same strategy they're doing now, dummy.
Towards answering your question, is this possible? Now, to be clear, this is not going to be a discussion of norms, of what is typical or customary. It's not going to be a discussion of what people call guardrails, structures meant to keep political actors from doing too much damage to the overall system. It's not even really going to be a discussion of law, although laws will come into it. Rather, it's going to be a discussion of capabilities. Think of it in these terms. It is against the law to use your cell phone and drive a car at the same time. It is an accepted norm that you do not use your cell phone and drive at the same time because it is dangerous. It's harmful potentially to yourself and those around you. You are capable of doing it. You are capable of using your cell phone while driving. This is the thing you can physically do. The thing stopping you from doing it, and to be clear, you should not do it. The thing stopping you from doing it is not a capability, but a norm. It is your judgment. And should you encounter the law, it is the law. It is the police officer who pulls you over. Now consider this. Distracted driving.
Okay. I mean, chat, I gotta tell you right off the bat, what makes laws effective is compliance. Anybody who studied criminal law and its application understands that criminals only get caught between 1 in 1,000 and 1 in 10,000 crimes they commit. Literally. It's like most of the time, criminals are committing so many crimes that are unpunished and uncaught. What keeps most people lawful is their own will. So I think what he's trying to, yes, we have the legal system there as a backstop. It's an encouragement. And if somebody is caught brazenly violating the law, we could punish them. But when somebody gets arrested for, committing crimes, they've probably committed 1,000 crimes just based on the odds of getting caught, prosecuted, arrested. It's very low. Deterrence is not what stops people from committing crimes.
Is also against the law. If I were to attempt to drive my car somehow with my back facing the front and my front facing the back, that would be illegal. I would be pulled over. But critically...
No, you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't. To be honest with you. I mean, I think that one is a little bit... You might eventually get pulled over depending on how much you did it. But like... Or if you went on the highway and you got a bunch of people calling the police, that, you know, that is kind of an obvious, notorious crime. So... Yeah, you might get pulled over for that. But if you just walked around stealing people's, you know, garden gnomes, you probably wouldn't get caught for that.
It's not physically possible, at least not for me. I cannot physically do that thing. So the thing keeping me from doing it, for all intents and purposes, is not my will. I might really, really want to. I might even try to rig up some way to do it. What's keeping me from doing it is a physical limitation, is a capability. I cannot do it. As we talk about federal elections, congressional elections specifically, and the president's role or lack thereof, what we're going to find...
His argument is he can't drive backwards because he'll get pulled over. Okay. I want you to... let's take this analogy. I want you to imagine that the governor of your state says, everybody, you're allowed to drive backwards. And I'm going to direct the police to allow everybody to drive backwards. 40% of the city starts posting on TikTok, driving backwards is based. That's a little bit of a different situation.
Is that it's not a norm that's keeping the president from interfering. It's not a lack of will that's keeping the president from interfering. It's not some kind of guardrail or law that's keeping the president from interfering. It is, in fact, a capability. It's just not really.
Okay, so this is why I wanted to watch this video. He's incredibly wrong. He's mind-bogglingly wrong. He's viciously wrong. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Elections only, and by the way, if you have any doubts about this, go look at flawed democracies around the world. The reason why they fail is because a political party declares them illegitimate and starts resisting, led by their leaders. The process could be fine, but if you don't have the democratic norm, basically the idea that we accept elections as legitimate and we hand power over to the winning party, no matter even if we disagree with them, that's a norm. That is a norm. That is not, we're not forced to by shot callers to do that. You certainly could break off and declare the elections to be invalid and start organizing your people to resist. And that's what people are worried about, Jay Bowie. They're worried about Donald Trump pressuring the Republican Party to resist the election norms. What are you talking about?
A thing that can be done. Or if it could be done, it requires a level of logistical and operational complexity that would challenge even generals in the field, marshaling armies to fight wars.
Donald Trump is the president of the United States and commander-in-chief, and he just got $175 billion for his personal Gestapo. And they're hiring every MAGA moron off the street with unlimited money. It is the largest federal law enforcement agency by far, much bigger than the FBI. And then he has the grassroots Republican Party. You don't think that a Republican Party flunky in rural Georgia is not going to go along with Donald Trump's directives? They chased Marjorie Taylor Greene out of the race. What the fuck are you talking about? Of course he can. Of course he can tell Republicans to do it. And the only thing that'll stop them is norms.
Much less a decrepit, aging, 79-year-old dilettante who happens to be the president of the United States. With that in mind, let's begin. Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution says as such: the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the places of choosing senators. Now, the first thing to note is that the president doesn't show up anywhere in this. The Article 2 of the Constitution deals with the presidency. The president doesn't show up here, neither does the executive.
Now, you know what else doesn't appear in the Constitution? Political party. But if you know anything about our politics, you understand that there has been a semi-state apparatus that has grown up around our system called the Republican and Democratic parties. The Republican Party has a lot of people that are elected to, for example, local boards, election boards. And in many states, those large political parties are integrated into the system itself through, for example, performing a certain amount of votes in the prior elections results in you getting like permanent spaces on the ballot, gets money for your party, get access to poll watchers, gives you access to positions on election boards. And those are political party flacks, the most extreme party supporters. And we saw this happen in 2020 with Donald Trump trying to pressure those people in places like Georgia. Now, they stood up to him then. The thing to be concerned about is Donald Trump has gained much more strict control over the Republican Party since 2020. He already demonstrated his willingness to try to interfere in the counting of elections in 2020. But now the Republican Party all over the country is far more pro-Trump and far more anti-democratic and far less norm-bound. It's not that Donald Trump will order through the positions of his office interference with the election. It is Donald Trump, from his position as leader of the Republican Party, will direct Republican Party officials to use their powers to interfere with the elections. Are you serious? Is this a joke? You're going to hold up the Constitution and say Donald Trump is not going to violate this? That's like walking out onto the street to fight ICE, and instead of putting a ballistic plate in your plate carrier, putting some constitutions. See how well they stop the bullets. But you don't get it, Mike. Dogs aren't allowed to play basketball
anywhere when it comes to elections. The Constitution is quite, states are responsible for federal elections. And inasmuch as Congress has a role, it is to regulate federal elections if it so chooses. And
I think you need more mods. Why? What's happening in the chat that needs to be moderated?
Uniform standard for how to conduct federal elections. It actually differs from state to state. It may even within a state differ from locality to locality, precinct to precinct. The American election system, for better or worse, is incredibly decentralized. In most states, the process during an
were people Fed posting, time them out.
Ordinary election is that the precincts are
what's that? Calling for a dictator who wants to start World War III to die? What's wrong with that? Because it's against the rules to call for violence. Also, you followed me 32 minutes ago. You're out of here. Fuck you.
Responsible for taking care of the machines, tabulating votes, and then reporting those votes to either sub-regional places or to the centralized state agency responsible for counting ballots. For something like a midterm election, for these district-based elections, it's more likely that it's going to be tallied within the district and the final results reported to the central state organization, the State Board of Elections or State Secretary of State's office or whatever it happens to be. You'll note that there's no federal or really executive role here. There are certainly agencies within the executive branch that touch on elections. The Federal Elections Commission, for example, largely deals with the enforcement of federal election law and specifically campaign finance law, such that it even exists anymore. And
the reason why it doesn't exist anymore is because the Republican Party, led by Trump, has appointed a bunch of flacks onto the board or left board members vacant so they can't do any enforcement actions. And they have the Supreme Court cooking up ridiculous interpretations of the First Amendment to say that we can't regulate campaign finance. Like, this is, I want you to understand, chat, that this is what you're seeing right here is a liberal, and they're coping, but they're leading. I am so incredibly grateful for your videos. I love Hope Core. Crazy that this has such low views and engagement. It should be lower. This was so helpful for my anxiety. Basically, what Jay Bowie is doing is telling liberals, don't worry, the guardrails are going to hold. He specifically said, oh, it's not guardrails because the president doesn't have power over elections. I mean, I want you to understand that there's never been somebody who's, how can you not see how stupid that is? Donald Trump doesn't have the power to annex Greenland. And yet, here we go. He's putting tariffs on Europe.
Justice is empowered to investigate voting rights violations, although, again, there's not much investigating happening under this administration. But in terms of proactive influence on the conduct of elections, there's not a federal role. That's the states.
I think this is one of those things where not only is it wrong, this is actually what I like to call virulent stupidity. Now, stupidity comes in a lot of forms, right? And we can recognize it when it's like, I think vaccines caused my cat to have autism. Like, you know, we can recognize that as stupid, right? And you go, haha, that guy's an idiot. But this is a more dangerous version of stupid, where this guy is approaching our political reality like you can figure it out from reading the Constitution. And superficially, it seems like, you know, he's not wrong that it doesn't say in the Constitution that the president has any influence on elections. He's totally right. That's true. The Constitution doesn't say that, but it's irrelevant. It's a non sequitur. It doesn't matter. The president is also the leader of a political party. As I said before, political parties are not mentioned in the Constitution. And yet, political parties dominate our politics. So Donald Trump, the president of the United States, therefore the leader of the executive branch and all law enforcement agencies, can direct them through his executive powers to do all sorts of shit that are not contained within the black letter law. And not only that, he holds influence over every Republican elected official because he's, you know, the president and the leader of the party and the unabashed thought leader of the Republican Party, meaning what he says Republicans agree with. Have you ever talked to a Republican? The number one thing about what makes a Republican is they defend whatever bullshit Donald Trump says. So if Donald Trump calls up a Republican elected official on the Georgia Board of Elections and says, you better do X, Y, and Z thing, or else that person is going to be intimidated. And whether or not they comply will be based on a fluke of history and how important they think democratic norms are and how well they can withstand the death threats that are surely going to come their way, if not actual physical threats. And this is where Jay Bowie is disarming the resistance. That is his function, disarming the resistance. You should recognize that Donald Trump has intent to interfere with the elections. That's why he did the gerrymandering shit. The gerrymandering shit is a violation of norms prescribed in the law, but everybody recognized, hey, we'll draw the districts once every 10 years, and then we'll leave them. Donald Trump is redrawing them to do mid-decade gerrymandering so he can get political undemocratic results, meaning he'll win more seats than he really should proportionate to the votes. That is a violation of our constitutional norms. And the effect of that is to make our system more undemocratic so he can seize power using the thin veneer of legalism. Oh, I'm not allowed, I'm not expressly forbidden from doing it, therefore I should do it. Donald Trump's policy. That is a violation of democratic norms that are necessary for elections to actually work. In order for elections to actually work, and this is basic political science shit, by the way, chat. So this is not only is this wrong, this flies in the face of basic political science thought. In order for a democracy to function, parties that lose must accept the legitimacy of the election and the power being held by the winner of the election. If the losers of the election reject the legitimacy of the elections and of the party that is won the elections, that's how you get civil war. Donald Trump is saying he rejects the legitimacy of elections won by Democrats. Republicans are saying, I'd rather not have elections than have an election won by a Democrat. That is setting us up for civil war, period. That's what it means. And in order to prevent that, we have to reinforce those norms, or we have to establish deterrence against Trump and the Republican Party so that they feel like, oh, it's a bad idea to do a civil war. It's a bad idea to interfere with the elections because my ass will be fried if I try. What you're saying is, don't worry, the systems are going to be fine because Trump doesn't have illuminated powers in the Constitution to interfere with the elections. Are you brain dead?
Comes to the counting of ballots. That's the states. And again, that's really the localities, the precincts. Let's say that we're talking about elections for the House to keep things simple. And let's say that we're in my great state, the Commonwealth of Virginia. So the boundaries of each House district are established by the state. The procedures for the conduct of the election is established by the state. If you want to run for office, you have to submit the paperwork to the state. Primaries, of course, are kind of joint public-private state party operations. And if you win the primary, that information goes to the state and you are on the ballot for that district. There is voting, and the voting, of course, doesn't happen in a single centralized location, but in many, many different precincts in the area. The ballots are tallied, sent to the State Board of Elections, and they announce the winner. Congratulations, you've won your election to the U.S. House of Representatives. What next? Well then, in very short order, your state issues you a certificate of certification.
This is liberal catnip. This is like, I'm reading Wikipedia to you in front of a bookshelf. This is it. This is liberal catnip. They love this fucking shit.
Certifying the election, certifying that you are the winner. And it sends a copy of this certificate to the clerk of the House, letting the House know that you are the winner. And then you get ready to go to Washington. Now here we have to talk a little bit about the House of Representatives. It's a little unusual. Now the Senate is what's called a continuing body. It continues across Congresses. That's because each class of senators, the 100 senators, they're elected in staggered.
This seems like it's actually providing value, but again, you can find all this from reading a Wikipedia article or a basic, like, you know what I mean, encyclopedic level of knowledge. This is not analysis, and this provides no value. Yes, there are procedures to certify who is sworn in as the House of, as the rightful winner of the House of Representatives. But he skipped over everything that mattered. For example, how are the votes tallied? When the votes are collected at the precincts, where do they go? How do they ensure that they are secure? How do they ensure that they are properly tallied? How do they make interpretations of ballots when there is ambiguities? Who makes those interpretations? What happens if a ballot shows up that has some questions about it? How do we determine if that ballot is valid or not? You understand that if you do that stuff in an unfair manner, you can overturn elections? Let's say that you have a corrupt elections board. Now, they don't want to outright stuff the ballot because that's too obvious. But if an election is kind of close, they want to do everything they can in a biased manner to help their side win. Let's say there's an election that's 50-50 and the Republicans control the election board. Donald Trump calls them up and says, you got to make sure we won this election. So they get into a hand recount, and part of that recount is provisional ballots and absentee ballots and foreign ballots and military ballots. If the election is counted in a corrupt fashion, in an arbitrary fashion, they could differentially reject ballots for the same and accept others based on who they voted for. I don't know. I'm not sure. That kind of looks like you double marked that election. No, clearly he erased that one and filled in that one. No. I don't know. It's ambiguity, and he throw it out. And then later, you have the same situation where somebody erased the name and then put in another name, but it's for the Republican. You say, clearly, will the voter, I say that's a good vote. And if you do this, that could swing the election. That's a form of corruption. From the perspective of everybody out here, all you can see is, it looks like he won 70% of the absentee votes, and that was just enough to get him over the finish line. That's happened before. That's happened legitimately before. And if you do stuff like that, if you do subjective things and you all do them in a biased fashion, you can change the outcomes of elections. What if, for example, mail-in ballots are overwhelmingly Democratic? Well, Republican states will just go, I don't know, there's problems with those mail-in ballots, and they start throwing out mail-in ballots en masse. That would be seen prima facie as a problem with the method of voting, but they're doing it because it would cause a differential in the voting outcome. There's all sorts of things you could do to cancel elections. Or I'll give you another example. This precinct had 99% of the people vote for a Democrat. That sounds like fraud to me. That happens all the time, chat. There are precincts where every single person votes for a Democrat in big cities. Happens all the time. If you start throwing out those precincts and say, that sounds questionable to me, and you start throwing out precincts that go 100% for the Democrats or 95% for the Democrats, that starts taking big chunks out of their lead and makes them unwinnable in statewide elections. There's so many things you can do if you have corrupted the local election boards to swing elections and win elections you shouldn't have won. And when we have a country that's relatively evenly divided, especially with all the gerrymandering, maybe Virginia is run fair. Maybe they run Virginia fair. Everybody who wins their election legitimately in Virginia wins. But in Texas, they don't run it fair because that's run by the Republicans. The Republicans are very much more likely to win the majority if that's the case, because Democrats need seats from red states in order to have a majority. There's not enough districts for them to fairly win just relying on blue states. They need blue districts in red states. If red states interfere with their elections, then Donald Trump and the Republicans can win with as little as 35-40% of the vote.
Classes. So for any given federal election, only some of the senators are up for election, about a third of them. The House is not a continuing body. The House reconstitutes itself after every federal election.
The Texas Secretary of State decertified a huge blue county because of abnormalities. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's because the entire House is elected every 2 years. What that means is that at the end of a Congress,
okay, let's say the midterms are obviously corrupted. What happens then? What do you think happens then? People like Jay Bowie are going to say, well, Donald Trump's policies, I guess they're just popular. I guess we need to accept it. He has the Democratic legitimacy, you know? I don't like it, but it would be anti-democratic to not support Donald Trump.
End of a term of the House functionally does not exist until the new House members or the returning members.
Bro, you're yapping, but all you have to do is point out a second set of elector scheme they already tried. He's on tape in Georgia, has not playing by the rules, lives leave to wake the fuck up. Yes, you're totally right. I was going to bring that. I mean, I brought it up offhandedly. But that's the entire point, is Donald Trump has already done this. It's just that the norms held because Republicans thought he was a fucking loser because he just lost the election and he was on the way out. And the Republicans had lost the House. So it wasn't viable for them to do this shit. But now it's very clear that the Republican Party has become the party of Trump, even more so than it was in 2020. And you can count on the fact that Donald Trump has far more influence toward local and state Republicans than he did in 2020.
Assemble on the House floor and reconvene. When they reconvene, they choose a new speaker because at the termination of the previous House, there is no longer a speaker of the House. You have to choose a speaker. If the same party is in the majority, they'll probably choose the same person to be speaker. And if it's a new majority, they'll choose a new speaker. The dean of the House, the oldest member of the House, will swear in that speaker. And then that speaker will swear in the new members. And then they'll do their committee assignments and rules and all that other stuff. Now, here are the things I want you to observe about this process. It's not involved. The Department of Justice is not involved. No federal agency is involved. It's only state agencies and state officials. No member of the previous majority of the House is involved in the swearing in of new members. No member of the administration is involved in the swearing in of new members of the House. In the Senate, the Vice President does swear in new members of the Senate. But in the House, the Vice President has no role. And of course, the certification process has all already been handled by the states. Now let's return to Mr. Trump's idle speculation about canceling the midterm.
Open presents, thank you for the 25 gifties.
Set aside thoughts of, again, norms or guardrails or anything. The thing you need to ask yourself and think about is what is the mechanism he's going to use to do it? Because the executive branch, and really the federal government, doesn't have an avenue. It is the person trying to drive their car backwards. Maybe with immense effort, it could potentially do something. But in practice, in reality, knowing what we know about this president, it requires a colossal stretch of the imagination. Essentially, you'd have to imagine a different person to think that they'd even begin to have any idea how to go about this. And in practice, going about this would be either persuading or threatening state boards of election, state secretaries of state, governors, to cancel their elections somehow. But again, remember that at the end of a House, or at the conclusion of a House term, the House kind of doesn't exist. And so doing this, first of all, would require existing members who may be poised to win the re-elections to make themselves unemployed.
All that has to happen, and this is why he's dumb. I'll explain to you how you would do how a autocrat would figure that out. You go to the payroll guys, and you put a gun to their head and you say, keep paying them. Keep paying these House members. And then you have your soldiers at the Capitol and they have the keys to the doors and they keep coming in and they keep sitting in their chairs and everybody keeps calling them representative. What is he? Does he think there's like magic? Like, oh no, they didn't do the election. Oh no, the shield over the House, the magic shield over the House of Representatives is breaking down. No, they just keep getting called representatives. They keep getting keep showing up. They keep getting paid. What the fuck are you talking about? But Mike, they didn't follow the procedure. The clerk didn't say they're a rep. That's against the rules. God's gonna come down and smite them. Bro, first of all, you skipped over the most important part. I'm assuming that every state with a Democratic governor is going to have fair elections. Okay, I assume that's the case, and Republicans are going to win a lot of those fair elections. They're going to get a lot of seats out of those blue states because blue states are not going to rig the elections for the Democrats. But in red states with red governors and red secretaries of state and red election boards, they're going to do all sorts of shit to try to push the election toward the Republicans. And if that's enough for them to maintain the majority, then that's going to help them maintain the majority. If it looks at, it depends on how popular the Democrats actually are. It depends on how the elections actually turn out. I happen to think that 65% of people are done with Trump. The idea of stealing the House elections is going to be much harder. They're going to try. They're going to put their finger on every scale they can. And if it's close enough, they might be able to do it.
Their paychecks, loot their staffs, make their staffs unemployed, so on and so forth. You'd have to be asking everyone to take a kind of big hit. Secondarily, Congress does disperse a lot of money. And so you'd be asking the leaders of states to risk the money that goes to their states. Another heavy lift.
In what way would it be risking their money? Are Democrats going to not pass a budget? Chuck Schumer is standing next to people who called the CHIPS Act communism as they celebrate some fucking ribbon cutting. And he's screaming, we're not doing that. We're doing bipartisanship. What the fuck are you talking about, liberal? What delusion is this guy on?
Although there are many state leaders who seem to be quite
what a schmuck.
Pliant to Trump, when he asked them to do something that they feel is against their interests, such as when he asked Indiana Republicans to redistrict their states to help him out, they refused. They felt that this wouldn't be in their interest. And consider this. Imagine a world where all the red states do it, but all the blue states don't. A quorum in both the House and Senate depends on the number of seated members. If there are vacancies, they aren't counted in the quorum. So if Republicans were to opt out of the elections, you would just have a Congress run entirely by Democrats. And while we're talking about this in the context of Trump being the singular actor, the only person with agency, the fact is that other people have agency. Elections are a powerful civic ritual in this country. We held elections during the U.S. Civil War, 1862 and 1864. Elections. Lincoln campaigned for the presidency in 1864. We held elections during the Great Depression. We held elections during the Second World War. This country likes to hold elections. People expect elections. Right now, lawmakers...
That's called a democratic norm. Called a democratic norm. He's like, it's not norms and guardrails that are going to keep it on the tracks. And then he just lists the norms and guardrails.
Their fundraisers, their allies, everyone is preparing for election.
What Jay Bowie wants you to know is that Donald Trump will never exceed the powers of the president in the Constitution because he can't. It says so in the Constitution.
Even, in fact, the president is preparing for election. And so in addition to the logistical and operational complexities involved here, the real difficulties, the lack of a mechanism, you'd also be asking many, many, many people, not just to act against their self-interest, but to abandon what is probably the single oldest civic ritual in the United States. And you'd be asking people to do this in the face of a
okay, I gotta stop watching this video because it's actually so bad that I can't even continue watching it. Because I feel like at the end of the day, he's going to fall back on the idea. He's like, well, I was talking about a complete suspension of all elections. And it's like, Donald Trump is probably smart enough to not do that. Because that would be so obviously unjustifiable that everybody in the world would be barking mad. But what Donald Trump will do is corrupt the elections, which he's already been doing. Why do you think they're redistricting in the middle of the fucking session? And Democrats, for the first time in history, actually responded because their own jobs were on the line to counter that by gerrymandering California. It looks like Virginia as well. That would have been unheard of 2 years ago, but now it's happening. So what Jay Bowie is saying, oh, that's unheard of. That's not in the Constitution. Democrats are doing right now to seize power. Thank fucking God. Donald Trump already tried to send a fake slates of electors in 2020. The idea that Donald Trump is not willing to interfere with the elections in such a way as to corrupt them is absolutely batshit crazy. And it's insane to think the Constitution is going to hold. Ultimately, I brought that video up, chat, because I wanted to make one point, and I gave him way more time than I should have. Liberals are not going to fight or not be ready to fight until the midterms. They're all fixated on the midterm. We have processes and procedures that have to be gone through before fighting and resistance is going to become necessary. Because the liberals will be like, you're interfering with our elections. You're interfering with the procedures. You're interfering with the process. And they will not join in to a resistance against ICE unless and until the midterms or all other avenues are fully exhausted. That's what you need to recognize about liberals. All right, chat, on to the next story I wanted to talk about today. Donald Trump wants to cite possibly the Insurrection Act against Minnesota.
Guanwu, our senior White House reporter Von Hilliard standing by in Washington. And also joining us, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Wesley Clark and former ICE Assistant Chief Counsel Veronica Cardenas. Vaughn, what more are we learning about President Trump potentially deploying U.S. troops to yet another American city, yet again in defiance of local leaders?
Right, and actually in just the last few minutes, as we were coming on air, our White House colleague, Laura Barron-Lopez, is now reporting that the Army's 11th Airborne Division was over the weekend called to be ready to go into active duty in the streets of Minnesota. This is an airborne division that is based in Alaska and specializes in cold weather conditions. Again, you're looking up to potentially 1,500 active servicemen and women who could be potentially deployed into the streets of Minneapolis. Now, this is coming at the same time that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has already called up National Guard members in Minnesota, not to be deployed at this point in time, but to potentially come and support local law enforcement as he and other local officials continue to urge peace in the streets here. But this is all coming to a head as the extent to just how long the Trump administration intends to have federal agents on the ground is still not clear.
Nnamdi, what was the scene overnight and this weekend? Have things escalated?
Well, you know, Anna, there has been a huge focus from local leaders here on any protest or demonstration remaining peaceful. Everyone I speak to, they're aware of the fact that any sort of escalation could be used as a pretext for the president to invoke the Insurrection Act. So the big concern on Saturday, for instance, was there was a large demonstration being organized by a self-described Islamophobe right-wing influencer that aimed to gather a whole bunch of people on City Hall as sort of a protest against what he called a crusade against Little Somalia. That had local leaders on edge, that if there was a large counter-protest being formed in response to that, you could see some sort of clash. But ultimately, that never really materialized just because not many people came to support this anti-Islamic crusade, and he was vastly outnumbered by counter-protesters. So ultimately, things there remaining calm. But that night at the Whipple Federal Building, where I am, which has served as the de facto headquarters for ICE, there was once again one of those volatile clashes between federal agents and protesters who once again had to use crowd control measures like tear gas and rubber bullets to keep a small but angry group of protesters in line. And now that has resulted in some changes that I do want to point out behind me. For instance, you can see some of these new gates right here that have been installed. They've essentially, with the help of the Hennepin County Sheriff, created a new protest area. They're now trying to prevent protesters from going in the middle of the road, interacting with federal agents directly by prevent them from trying to enter this facility by limiting them to this sidewalk, and they've put in fences to ensure that happens. You're also for the first time seeing a consistent presence of Hennepin County Sheriff officers here. One told me today that the current plan, at least for now, is for them to be on a sort of 24-hour duty. All of that comes, as Secretary Noem, I'll point out, did ask Mayor Frey to implement protest zones at areas like the Whipple Building. While the mayor said that he doesn't want to see limits on free speech, it seems the county sheriff was at least willing to comply to a degree there. All of this, of course, comes amid this threat, like you mentioned, from the president that he could possibly invoke the Insurrection Act. And again, the readying of those Army personnel. Mayor Frey, in an interview yesterday, called that intimidation. I want to play you what he had to say.
Here's the thing. We're not going to be intimidated. If the goal here is safety, we've got many mechanisms to achieve safety. And the best way to get safety is not to have an influx of even more agents. I'm so proud to be the mayor of this awesome city with these extraordinary people. They're peacefully protesting. They're standing up for one another. I never thought in a million years that we would be invaded by our own federal government.
And again, it's worth noting that organizers we speak to are aware of the stakes. They're aware of the political dynamic they're operating in. They're still upset. They are still planning programming throughout this week. But again, the priority is that all of the demonstrations they organize remain peaceful.
Nnamdi Guanwu, thank you for your reporting. I know it's so cold there. Please go get warm. General, the Pentagon would reportedly rotate these troops if these active duty troops were to be sent to Minneapolis out of Alaska. We've confirmed at least 2 battalions have been readied. We've seen other reporting from other outlets specifically that those troops are ready for Minnesota, all at a time when the president claims that he's trying to bolster America's military footprint in the Arctic. So does this plan make sense to you?
Well, I think it has to be looked at from both the national security side and also the domestic politics side. And so I can understand why the president is doing this. He is trying to put pressure on the people in Minnesota. But, you know, Anna, what's really different about this is, first of all, these troops in Alaska, although they may be capable of doing crowd control and civil disturbance duties, they wouldn't be as well trained as the National Guard in this, I'm sure, because they're up there as active duty. They're working attacks, defense, delay, the normal military maneuvers, platoon, company, battalion. Suddenly they get called and told, you're going to go to Minnesota and do civil disturbance and crowd control and so forth. It'll be a real effort for them. But this is what the president wants. The difference is that in the 1960s and 70s, when we had these disturbances, when the Army learned how to do crowd control, it was about de-escalation. It was not about something that was actually driven by a federal need to enforce, except for the case in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. And there we did have the National Guard called out by the governor to prevent desegregation of Central High School. And President Eisenhower then federalized the National Guard, brought in the 101st Airborne, and we every day we escorted the Little Rock group of 10 young people into Central High School. That's the last time I can think of anything similar to this that was actually done to enforce law. And it's been a long time, and that was clearly required by law. This is something a little bit different that's going on in American cities today.
Yeah, that context, I think, is so important, and that history is important. Veronica, the troop deployment would be triggered, right, if the president invoked the Insurrection Act. So that's what we're talking about. He's floated to do that. It was last invoked more than 30 years ago in response to the Rodney King riots in 1992. And California's governor welcomed that move at the time. We know in that situation, dozens of people had died. There was widespread destruction because of the riots. Is the Minnesota situation anything like that? How do you see this potential move?
I see this potential move as another betrayal to the American public. We are talking about immigration laws and enforcement of immigration laws. That has been constantly a moving target under this administration in the way that they're changing the laws. The enforcement of immigration, they're not equipped to go out and just arrest everyone who is peacefully protesting, who's observing, and we're seeing the consequences of that, of an agency that is allowed to arrest without warrant. Congress has given them so many authorities that strip courts of even reviewing this. We see the district courts really grappling with this issue. The court in Illinois, who had a stay against the excessive force of...
Our society is literally the same as if Don't Look Up was about fascism. Exactly. And what I hated about that movie and why I don't like it, even though there are some really good parts to it, even though there's like, I'm not like a 1 star. I give it a 3 star, 2.5 star. And the reason is because I have enough of that. I don't need any more Gen X Jon Stewart. Okay, I don't need enough people being smug and saying, I tried, I went on television. I need more people making whistle kits with me. I need more people going around Los Angeles and photographing ICE. I don't need more people going, I don't know, we tried. You could have saved that movie if Leonardo DiCaprio became a terrorist. The end of that movie should not be, it should not have been them around the fucking table eating a pie. It should have been him fucking detonating a fucking belt in the Oval Office. Okay? That should have been the point. If the institutions are leading to humanity's extermination, the institutions must be exterminated. And that should be the lesson of Don't Look Up, instead of keep following all the rules up until the comet hits the planet. No, we start murdering their asses if they're gonna do a civilization ending mistake. We don't stand idly by. There's too much of this self-aggrandizing, navel-gazing, liberal defeatism. I don't need any more of that. I don't need any more. I was smart and they were dumb. If you're so smart, how come you're losing? Like, I was smarter than the deer as you starved to death. They just kept running away from me. If you're so fucking smart, why are you a loser? And that is something that I always ask myself. You know, you have to keep yourself back in reality, which is, I think of myself as intelligent. Am I getting all the outcomes I want in life? No. So obviously there's a problem with my intellect. It's obviously incomplete. You need to have some humility. You need to constantly be reflective.
Immigration, that went up to the Seventh Circuit. It came back down, and the district court judge still hasn't issued a dismissal on that case because of the Renee Good murder. And so we're seeing district courts grappling with this. And immigration was meant for targeted enforcement, not a massive sweep to just ask anyone who is present on the streets about whether or not they have status to be in the United States.
I do want to mention that a federal judge on Friday did bar federal agents in Minneapolis from
By the way, chat, when liberals were saying, haha, Donald Trump can't do this. Do you guys remember that? I don't know if I have any clips. Maybe the mods can find this. There were so many people that were like, aha, they can't do this. They can't do this. And I said they absolutely can do this. Just like Jay Bowie's like, oh, they can't cancel any elections or interfere with the elections. They absolutely can. Just as many people, unfortunately, were wrong about Gaza. Many people believed you can't violate international law so blatantly. That's against international law. They'll get indicted. They'll go to prison. No. For you to understand something, whenever you say so-and-so can't do X, you need to explain to me in gruesome detail, step by step, how someone's going to be stopped from doing the thing before you say they can't. Oh my gosh. Thank you, VO. VO made me breakfast, chat. He made me some beautiful fried eggs and toast. Thank you, VO. I'm in VOW. The 1:05 p.m. breakfast, it's 10 a.m., man. Noam has thrown out that even citizens should start carrying proof of citizenship. Real ID does not count as. That's just show me your paper shit.
Arresting peaceful protesters or trying to stop drivers who aren't obstructing their immigration actions.
Eggs, yeah.
Meantime, coming back to the potential of further escalation when you talk about federal forces on the ground, Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz has also readied the state's National Guard, and officials this weekend said the Guard is, quote, ready to help support public safety, including protection of life, preservation of property, and supporting the rights of all who assemble peacefully. General, that last point, protecting...
Okay, so in other words, they're ready to stop rioters. They're ready to be used against the civilians. They're going to be used to deploy in defense of ICE.
Protesters, basically. Could this create a scenario where the National Guard is at cross purposes with the federal agents and the troops sent in by the Pentagon? How would that even play out?
It could create a situation where it might appear that there's a conflict between the ICE agents and the National Guard. But the National Guard would be focused on holding back and forming a protective shield around the protesters. So it might not be what it looks like. Now, if you put the active duty forces...
That is the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever heard in my entire life. 0% chance. 0% chance. 0% chance. Tim Walz does not have that in him. There is no chance whatsoever that the National Guard will be used to defend protesters.
In there, then you're going to probably federalize the local National Guard so there's unity of command. So they would be under the command of the active duty commander who's there. So there wouldn't be...
So they'd be under the command of Donald Trump, who is the commander-in-chief of the military. Why are you pretending that they would be used to defend protesters from ICE? What?
Conflict between uniformed forces.
Veronica, some Democrats argue ICE has become a rogue agency under President Trump and that it needs to be dissolved or drastically overhauled. ICE has only been around for about 23 years, and for much of that time, illegal immigration has increased. Immigration processing has only become more backlogged. Has ICE failed? And what would immigration enforcement without ICE?
I think ICE as an agency has failed. I think DHS as a department has failed. And the reason that it has failed is because Congress just gave it too much authority. Anytime there's issues of national security, border security, the government has wide latitude in how to enforce those laws. But what we're seeing now is a shift from border enforcement. Most of the arrests that are happening now are happening in the interior. We're seeing a departure from going after the worst of the worst. The statistics show that most of the people that are detained, about 80%, do not have criminal records. And we're also seeing a shift, not just targeting non-citizens, people without documentation. They're actually targeting the documented, people who are going through the process legally in the hopes that they can rush deportation before someone can get legal status. They're also going after U.S. citizens and peaceful protesters. So we're seeing a lot of departures here. The agency, the department does need to be gutted. Congress needs to have broader restrictions on what ICE can do and how courts can review their actions.
Listen, I don't think it's a good thing to deploy the National Guard. Okay, here's my general take. It would be a good thing if the Democratic Party wasn't the Democratic Party.
Pentagon ordering.
Like that's the reality, is that they're not going to be like, I'm deploying the Minnesota National Guard and I'm ordering the commander of the Minnesota National Guard to defend Minnesota against the federal government. That's not in the cards. As I said, that kind of thing is not on the table until November. Every liberal believes we just have to make it to November. If we make it to November and the damn lefties don't scare everybody, the Democrats will win a majority in Congress and will be able to rein Trump in through Congress. That's what every liberal believes. Yeah, the lefties are right, but they, if they do something too crazy, it's going to piss everybody off, and then I'm going to have to vote for Trump. Listen, they should be able to mow down lefties in the street without anybody protesting, okay? Just let the Democrats win the election. I'm promising nothing. They're not even going to promise to abolish ICE. They'll just say, hey, I'm not a Republican, and that's all you should expect.
About 1,500 active duty soldiers to be ready for possible deployment to Minnesota amid a major immigration enforcement operation. That's according to 2 defense officials. They say 2 infantry battalions from the Army's 11th Airborne Division in Alaska are on prepared to deploy status. One official says the troops could be sent if President Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, which allows active duty forces to act as law enforcement. Trump recently threatened to use that law, then said there was no need, at least right now. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has urged the president not to do it. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal is highlighting the pressure ICE officers are under to make daily arrest quotas. Citing ICE officials, the paper reports agents are expected to take into custody 3,000 people nationwide each day. That daily benchmark works out to about 1 million arrests in a year. The Journal states, quote, though ICE has never come close to meeting that daily goal, officers are rewarded for making arrests, even if the immigrants they take in are later released. Additionally, the paper highlights how the Minneapolis operation feels different on the ground compared to other major cities where ICE has been deployed. That's because some 3,000 federal officers are operating in and around Minneapolis, a city of 430,000 people. Compare that with just a few hundred agents sent to Chicago last fall. That was a city with 2.7 million residents. Meantime, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara is questioning the actions of an ICE agent who shot and killed Renee Good earlier this month. In an interview with 60 Minutes, O'Hara said the agent appeared to violate basic officer safety principles when approaching Good's SUV, repeatedly placing himself in the vehicle's path just before the shooting. O'Hara says after reviewing the video, he's left with serious concerns, including why the ICE officer placed himself in harm's way and didn't follow basic procedures.
I've seen the video.
Harm's way? He wasn't even in harm's way. He just shot her in cold blood.
And it's not clear to me why he appears to be in the path of the vehicle more than once. When you approach someone in a vehicle in a law enforcement encounter, there's very basic steps you take to ensure the officer's safety and to de-escalate the situation.
I want to bring in live from Minneapolis, MS Now reporter Nnamdi Egwuonwu. Nnamdi, just set us up for what we're in for this week, because over the weekend we've seen reporting around the potential for subpoenas against Governor Walz and Mayor Frey. I imagine that people are still very concerned and the mood is intense. At the same time, it's also really, really cold there, right? So what does that set up for this week?
Well, you know, it's easy to presume that because of the cold weather we've seen in recent days, it's currently about -8, that there may be a decrease in some of those protests you've been seeing. I can tell you that we've been surprised that that hasn't necessarily been the case. You know, we're back at the Whipple Federal Building, which has served as both the de facto headquarters for ICE here, but also a consistent site of protests. And despite the cold weather, it has continued to be a consistent site of protests, particularly amid, you know, reports that the Justice Department were investigating Mayor Fry and Governor Walz, and like you said, as Trump and the Army at least ready for the possibility of some sort of deployment of federal military personnel here. That, of course, fueling anger, fueling frustrations among people here that have wanted, if anything, a decrease in the amount of federal officials, federal immigration personnel that are in this city. We've continued to see a response from local police here, local sheriff deputies here, who are tasked with ensuring that tensions remain low, doing what they can to make sure the clashes we've seen at this building aren't happening as consistently as they were. I want to show you some changes that have been made to this building to make sure that happens. If you look behind me, you'll see fencing all across the sidewalk here that typically protesters are pushed back in. We've seen in recent days a larger presence of the Hennepin County Sheriff here, who have now been tasked with ensuring that protesters essentially stay on this side of the sidewalk. You've seen the viral videos of protesters in the middle of the street, even walking as close to the entrance of this facility, specifically touching on cars, interacting directly with the agents as they go in and out. The sheriffs are trying to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. They've told me as of this morning that's both to protect the safety of those protesters, some of whom quite literally are in the middle of the road sometimes, but also to limit those clashes you've been seeing from federal agents and protesters amid this threat of a potential escalation of federal resources if those clashes get too volatile. Another protest I want to highlight took place yesterday. It was actually at a church service. Protesters identified a pastor at one church in St. Paul that they believed was an immigration agent. They interrupted that church service and did a protest demonstration while there. Interestingly enough, the Justice Department responded to that hours later, saying that they intend to investigate some of the, quote, agitators that they said interrupted that church service. So again, you're still seeing new methods of protest. Frustrations remain high, and a Justice Department that's responding by not backing down, but saying we're going to continue to investigate the protesters and fortify the building behind me to ensure that these agents can still do their job.
Yeah, double down has been the response of the administration at every turn. I do just quickly want to spotlight the conversations that you've been having with the Native American population in Minnesota, who have been among those expressing a lot of fear about what's happening. Just take us inside those conversations.
Well, you know, Ali, we've gotten to spend the last several days with members of the Native community here, and it's the last group that you think would be stressed or worried about any kind of interaction with ICE. But nonetheless, several of them told us that they're essentially concerned that the 3,000 odd agents that are here just aren't familiar with the Native population, and as such may go to Minneapolis, see a brown face, and assume that it's someone subject to a stop. We've heard stories from members of the Native community that they have experienced stops with officers, that when showing their tribal ID, those IDs aren't always recognized by immigration agents as legitimate form of identification, and reports at least that some members of tribal communities may actually have been detained. I want to play for you some of the conversations we had with various tribal members exactly about this. Take a listen.
We're the first inhabitants of this country. This is our land. This is Native land. Right now, we're on Dakota land, right here in the Twin Cities. Some of these ICE agents who are coming into our community, they could be from Indiana, Mississippi, where they're not used to seeing Native peoples. They just see a brown person and think we're all immigrants. You know, and I'm scared for the young Indian kid walking from Little Earth down to the corner store, just trying to go get a bottle of pop or some chips, and doesn't have an ID on him, getting detained. And it's already happened.
Now, if I can outline one of the ways the community is responding, a tribal leader gave me a little history lesson. In 1968,
I can't believe he's so Mideast now. Like they say, seeing an indigenous American or a Native American say pop. Can I just say, when I'm in Minneapolis, I'll say it pop too. What does ICE consider proof of citizenship? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what ICE... Because the moment you hand your document over and they drop it down a sewer grate, now what? Or they put it in their pocket and say you never gave it to them, now what? You're carrying around these documents like shields, but they're not shields of anything. The institution is a rogue institution. They don't give a shit about whatever paper shield. The only way you're going to be able to resist ICE is to be able to resist ICE. If they grab you, 20 people run up and de-arrest you. That is the only real resistance that is going to be effective, because they don't follow the rules. They don't believe in due process. So you can carry around whatever you want to carry around, but that's just a psychological bomb. It doesn't mean they're going to let you go. I'm telling you this not because I want you to fight ICE or whatever on the streets, because that would be against the law. And one of the things I always try to explain to you guys is that here on the Central Committee stream, I have to follow the law. So I can never tell you to fight ICE on the streets, because that's against the law. Do you understand? They don't care about your papers. And by the way, neither did the Nazis. Papers, please, was just how they got the liberals to go along with it. That's how they broke up solidarity, because the liberals had papers to fixate on. They had papers to say, well, you should have had your papers. The purpose of papers is to get liberals who are obsessed with process to focus on the papers and making sure their papers are all in order. They're not a protection. They don't matter. There were plenty of Germans who were Christian who were arrested by the Gestapo. It doesn't fucking matter if your papers are in order. Fascism is arbitrary. When they told you we don't have a right to due process for immigrants at America's borders, what they were really saying is there's no such thing as due process anymore. We get to do whatever the fuck. And that, to me, ladies and gentlemen, was my Rubicon. That was my Rubicon. The moment people started defending no due process for people captured in the United States, that was my Rubicon. We've crossed my Rubicon. It's time to fight back. Open presents. Thank you so much for the 100 gifted subs. Holy shit. Mike should play the scene with Ned Stark and Robert's will that Cersei tears up.
Is this meant to be your shield, Lord Stark? A piece of paper.
That's the reality. Like, I know Game of Thrones is now cringe, but that's something from the actual books. Okay? Not the last 2 seasons of the show didn't exist. That's the reality. See, what happens is everybody got caught up in the illusion. Everybody got caught up in the illusion. Papers work when we're all on the same page and we all consent. And there's enough counterbalances to make sure that the papers matter. But the papers don't do anything themselves. They are simply something that arises through a certain interlocking set of expectations and norms and enforcements that are based on a mutually shared illusion. That illusion is no longer existing until we construct a new one that is enforced by rule brute force. It doesn't exist anymore. And liberals fixate on the papers because it's nostalgic. It reminds them of a time when the papers used to work, and they can hold on to it like a totem, a piece of protection, a safety blanket. They don't matter. The truth is, it's a bunch of racist, Trump-supporting guys empowered to go around and grab anyone they don't like and use the protection of the federal government to do so. That is the reality. And the reason why we pay attention to all these rules, the reason why we're setting up our socialist defense forces and learning about our laws and blah, 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 blah. The purpose isn't because they're going to follow them. The purpose is so that we can explain to everybody that they're a lawless force that needs to be fought against. But the only way people are going to be convinced is if we go through all the procedures, we go through all the petitions, we go through all the appeals, we go through all the processes, we try to do everything the right way first. That's the way it goes. When you're a good guy, you gotta be stupid. The good guys don't fight back at the beginning. The good guys try to avoid violence. The good guys are constantly going like, well, what about this? They're trying to compromise. They're trying to understand. They're trying to empathize. That's why you're a good guy. I'm sorry, I said this earlier. We're not going to be able to skip steps, but you're smart. You're a leftist. You're in my chat. You can prepare. You can get ahead of the curve. You could go and buy yourself an AR-15. You could go and buy yourself level 4 plates. You could go and buy yourself a gas mask. You could go and buy yourself ballistic goggles. You could go and buy yourself the radios and drones. You could go and buy yourself that stuff right now. You are able. Oh, chat, do we have a hype train? Ladies and gentlemen, we are dangerously close to a hype train. We are 3 hours into the stream. If you enjoy this content, please consider supporting it by subscribing. at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub, I can tell you right now, chat, that a large percentage of my money is going to be going into some left-wing projects going forward. So you can prepare. You need to find, this is what I'm decided to do, chat. I'm going to find community. I'm going to get plugged in. I'm going to start building these institutions. And that's what you need to do. The liberals are going to require us to go through all the procedures. They're going to need every possible avenue will need to be exhausted before anybody tries to fight back. And many liberals are just going to become apathetic. This is something else that you need to accept. That some Democrats, some liberals will never, ever fight back, ever, no matter what happens. They'll put their head down. They'll play Dungeons and Dragons with their group of friends or whatever the fuck. They'll fantasize. They'll do escapism. They'll do ironic humor. And they will back out and they will back down. That's what you need to learn to accept, that not everybody's going to be fighting back. And a lot of them are going to project. They're going to blame you. See, you fighting back is what caused this, guys. You fought back and you were right about everything, but you caused it by fighting back. So you need to recognize that. You need to understand that. They will do everything but look up. Exactly. There was a scene in Handmaid's Tale that I think you guys need to get familiar with. This is what they're trying to set us up to. Bro, you went viral in Weibo in China. I went viral again? All right, let's get. We'll check that in a second. Ultimately, you have to understand that the purpose of protest is to get media attention, but in and of itself does not stop this from happening to you. I need you to understand that. I need you to accept that. That's what they're trying to send the military toward Minnesota, because they understand, and I'll tell you why they're doing it. The reason why they're sending them, they want to send the military to Minnesota, is because Americans like their troops. They trust the military. They like the troops. They identify with the troops. They don't blame the troops for following the orders of the president. Even liberal people, even left-wing people will be like, oh, my baby troops, my veterans. And so what Donald Trump wants to do is send these untrained kids onto American streets to enforce laws they don't know. And then either people comply because they like their troops, or some violence happens and the troops gun down people. That is the ultimate goal. And as you're going to see, American soldiers are not going to be mutiny. They're not going to be doing mutiny. They're going to follow the rules. They're going to go along with what everybody else is doing. How do I know? Because it always happens in history. Read a fucking book. Mutiny, the troops, that requires leadership. What general that do you know wants to fight Trump? Dissenters are there? None. There's not even a whisper of mutiny. The military will shoot you. And they will not hesitate. They've been practicing shooting at civilians for 25 years.
The citizens, why do you call them voters?
I don't know. Because that's what we f***ing call them. Who cares?
Because we took away their rights. Took away their right to vote, and somebody started calling them voters to mock them.
I didn't mean anything by it, Sergeant.
Of course you didn't. You're thoughtless.
Sergeant.
Running.
Copy. How many?
A lot.
Could be WLF. Lock and load.
No.
Sarge.
I'm gonna go talk to them. Alone.
The protocol.
Protocol is to obey your commanding officer, period. The end. Now, if we go out there and force, this will end up the way it always does.
You wanna die? Fine.
You. Come with me.
Welcome to the fight.
Now make your choice.
The citizens, why do you...
Wow, that's a good scene. That's an interesting scene. At this point, anyone who vehemently disagrees with this has found a way to get out of the military. My husband medically retired last year and mainly pulled the trigger because he just do it anymore. Didn't want to be complicit. He's not the only person I know who has done this. Well, I'm so glad that he's protected his own morals or whatever. But how are we going to fight back against these guys? Ursula van der Linde discovers international law just in time for Greenland. Territorial integrity and sovereignty are fundamental principles of international law. They are essential for Europe and for the international community as a whole. Wait a minute. Trump invaded Venezuela and you didn't sanction. The United States invaded Iraq, you didn't sanction. Israel invaded and genocided Palestine, you didn't sanction. When did international law and territorial integrity suddenly matter? What do you mean? I guess when it happened to the whites. We have consistently underlined our shared transatlantic interest in peace and security of the Arctic, including through NATO. This is just a sign that they're like desperate to appease Trump, but they want to save face. But Trump is saying to the Europeans, I'm not going to let you save face. I'm going to take Greenland to show that I dominate you. That's why they're doing it. They're not doing it because of security reasons. They're doing it because they want to humiliate you. They're doing it because they want to show that they can. Don't you understand? They're doing this because they want the Europeans to be seen and feel as powerless as they really are. The pre-coordinated Danish exercise conducted with allies responds to the need to strengthen Arctic security and poses no threat to anyone. The EU stands in full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland. Dialogue remains essential. We are committed to building on the process begun already last week between the Kingdom of Denmark and the U.S. Tariffs would undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. Europe will remain united, coordinated, and committed to upholding its sovereignty. Oh, you suddenly discovered international law after backing a genocide for 2 years. Yeah. Europe is weak without us? No, it's not. No, it's not. They choose to be weak. They choose to allow the United States to do their dirty work. And they thought they were in the club. All the rich Europeans thought they were in the club. And now Donald Trump is saying, you're my vassal. Give me your land. I don't know why China isn't taking this time to go super aggro with partnering with NATO nations. The answer is they wisely understand that if they are aggressive, then everybody, it'll give the centrist libs in Europe everything they need to justify agreeing with Trump. They'll say, oh, sorry guys, I've got to do this. The Chinese are just so aggressive. We have to give over Greenland to America. So what China is doing is, I'm going to sit back and play like a pussycat and be kind and bat my yarn over here. And I'm not going to do anything to give the Europeans cover. Don't give the Europeans cover by being aggressive. Peaceful, be gentle, stand back and say, I don't know why he's doing it, and make the Europeans eat shit. That's why they're doing it. Surprised that you skipped the Gorman massacre? I didn't because it's a major spoiler and the show isn't that old. Whereas the Handmaid's Tale scene is from like 7 years ago. How do you know they are not telling the EU to come to China? I mean, the Canadians are saying the quiet part out loud.
South Minneapolis, in response to concerns that the police were targeting the Native community, the American Indian movement, which is based here in Minneapolis, they created patrols that would essentially safeguard the community, escort tribal members that were concerned about potential interactions with police. Well, Ali, roughly 60 years later, they've reformed those patrols, but this time in response to concerns about encounters with ICE.
Yeah, community members just trying to protect each other. MS Now reporter Nnamdi Egwanwu, thank you for coming on with us live from Minneapolis. I want to bring in now MS Now national security reporter David Rode. So, David, you talked to the ranking Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. That's Congressman Adam Smith of Washington. You spoke about active duty troops being told to prepare to head to Minnesota. What did he tell you, and what's informing his state of mind right now as we wait to see what ends up ultimately happening?
So Representative Smith said he had no, he's the ranking member, as you said, on the House Armed Services Committee. He'd been told nothing about this. The military doesn't have to notify Congress for this kind of step, but he said it's extraordinary and unnecessary, and he thought it would essentially be just exacerbate the tensions there.
Mike, did you see Josh Shapiro's New York Times article where he's grilled by the Harris team if he was an Israeli agent? Oh yeah, chat. This is a side story that I don't know if we'll get to it today, but we're definitely going to cover it this week. Josh Shapiro's launching his campaign by saying Kamala Harris is an anti-Semite. It's actually insane. It may be the worst political move ever made in the history of the world. It may be the worst strat in the history of politics. If there's anything that's going to destroy his reputation, it's when people realize that he's the super Zionist that he is. Ladies and gentlemen, Editor Mentum wanted you to know that Andy Bashir, Josh Shapiro, and Gretchen Whitmer were great Democrats that you should support. And I came out and I explained to you that every single one of them were absolute dog shit. And I didn't just say it because I'm being, contrarian. I explained that Gretchen Whitmer's father was the Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO. The only reason she went into politics was to block a Medicare for All candidate. The only reason she ran for governor was to block a Medicare for All Bernie Sanders progressive. I've known Josh Shapiro since he was a commissioner of Montgomery County in 2014. I knew him for a decade. So when I tell you he's a piece of shit, it's from my personal experience. And last but certainly not least, Andy Bashir is a Nepo baby. And he is a Democratic Party machine politician. None of these people are even progressive, let alone people that you or I should support. Those are our enemies. Now, Editor Mentum spent a lot of time trashing AOC. AOC has always been the left's most likely candidate. So for the love of God, if you are following that piece of shit, can you stop? You do not need, and if you see anybody bringing Editor Mentum up, I mean, I'm just saying, the guy's a fucking idiot. Who is Editor Mentum related to? He used to have an account called City of Freaks, and I want to say that his parents are some like national security people, but I don't remember. I don't remember the details. Or are they lawyers? I can't remember. Mike, how do we push AOC to the left? She's getting pushed to the left right now. Chapo and Hassan love Editor Mentum. I don't know why. He doesn't post funny shit. He was the worst political prognosticator in 2024 of like the entire internet. He doesn't even have good track record. He's like a more dumb Nate Silver. I don't understand it. Somebody help me. I love your honesty. You say shit that I bet many see as radical or absolutely off the rails, but it's just cutting through bullshit and it's lovely. I'm sorry, but what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? You want me to pretend like this guy knows what he's talking about? He's an idiot. The guy is yet to have a good take or be right about something. Basically a slightly more left appealing hutch. Basically what Editor Mentum shows you is it's not the content of what you say or your skill, but who is in your social circle. Literally. Like there is absolutely no reason whatsoever to ever follow or listen to him in any way. But he's in this social circle, so people pretend like he has something to say, and it's crazy to me. And the reason why I'm putting this out there is because I think he's actually counterproductive. Normally, I would just let him go and not say anything and not care. But I actually think he's actively harmful to our movement, and he's counterproductive, and he's making people more liberal, not less liberal. So normally I would just let him exist, but when somebody's this wrong consistently and damaging to the people that are actually on our side, like for example AOC's presidential campaign, trashing AOC as a presidential candidate and promoting Gretchen Whitmer is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in the history of left-wing politics. She doesn't fuck with us at all. Remember when Hassan had you and Editor Mentum on stream before the election? He came across as a total I mean, it was very funny. What is the goal of my movement? The goal of my movement is to achieve a democratic socialist United States where you have everybody is in a union, you have a job guarantee, social and public housing of high quality are guaranteed, we have high quality free healthcare, free education, quality public transit, a Green New Deal so that we protect the world against climate change, no more wars, and a comprehensive immigration system so that people that live and work here have rights. I also want to abolish Israel. I want to abolish all billionaires. So you are a social democratic liberal? No. I mean, if we're talking about the horizon, I want to have a global world revolution and abolish capitalism. I assume that guy was talking about what I want to do in the next 10 years. By the way, I'm happy to skip all over all of, if there is some sort of like, if there's a major rupture in the United States that breaks down into some sort of like civil war, well, what I think we could do will be radically moving to the left. How would you go about abolishing billionaires? Expropriation. The left would lose. I think what people don't understand about civil war is that the groups that go in are not the groups that emerge at the end. They rarely are. So what you're calling the right and the left will certainly, I mean, if America got into large scale civil conflict, everybody's going to be sticking their fingers in that pie. So, you know, I wouldn't be so sure we know what that would mean. I think we should have control of immigration. Most of the problem that we have with immigration is due to the United States' foreign policy. For example, we sanctioned Venezuela and Cuba's economies viciously during COVID, which caused them to collapse. And then millions of people were forced to flee for economic reasons. If the United States of America stopped sanctioning other countries and just became non-interference and pursued non-interference and allowed countries to develop on their own path, there would be a lot less refugees flowing to the United States and Europe. People don't want to move. They love their family. They love their community. They don't want to walk 2,000 miles to the United States. Okay? People only did that because of economic necessity.
Doing this would involve invoking the Insurrection Act. The last time that was used was in 1992. It was during the LA riots where 63 people died and more than 2,000 were injured. The only person who has died in Minnesota is the one protester who was shot by the ICE agent. And so there's just a feeling from Democratic members of Congress that this is just overkill. And Congressman Smith, thinks this is just going to increase tensions, not decrease them.
Yeah, says it's going to be a huge mistake to send those troops to Minneapolis. So that's one piece that we're watching. But then I also wonder, I can guess what the congressional reaction is going to be to this idea that the DOJ has opened an investigation into Governor Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. But just talk a little bit about how stunning that is to hear, especially as we saw the U.S. Attorney.
Only the dumbest rubes think there's an immigration policy problem. The U.S. takes barely any immigrants. The problem isn't with the number of immigrants that America has. It's with our immigration system is non-functional. Our immigration system is non-functional. So basically what that means is when people come here, they don't have a path of becoming a lawful citizen. There's no path to take. So, and yet our society demands tens of millions of immigrants within it in order for it to function. So you have a legal system, which is a complete contradiction with the economic system that's standing above it. Unless you think keeping people illegal benefits a certain capitalist, which it absolutely does. You know what prevents your meat processing plant from becoming unionized? When you could just call ICE whenever somebody tries to fight for better wages or working conditions. So a lot of why our immigration system is broken is because they're trying to do union busting. If you could just call ICE whatever your agricultural workers demand better pay or better working conditions or money for the doctor or better housing, you basically have a slave population.
Attorney's office in Minnesota just last week lose multiple prosecutors because they were concerned in part about the way that there was a lack of investigation into the ICE officer and pushing towards an investigation into Renee Good and their partner.
Yeah, so Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said over the weekend that there was not going to be an investigation of the officer. There was actually the investigations focused on Renee Good and her spouse. And it's just extraordinary to have him announcing the outcome of the investigation when it's just begun. The investigation is supposed to be based on facts. So everything seems to be going backwards. It is, you would think it's possibly a negotiation tactic. We've tried to get comment from the Pentagon. They refer us to the White House. This is all.
Remember when Editor Mentum justified the Iowa poll that was the worst poll in modern history? J. Ann Seltzer, the best pollster in America, just published her final survey of Iowa. It's D+3, a 12-point shift left for 2020. It's the best poll Democrats have seen in years. Here's why Seltzer might be right and everyone else might be wrong. This Iowa poll is wild. That said, Seltzer scuttled her poll in 2020 when it showed Bernie Sanders winning the Iowa caucus because of a Buttigieg campaign complaint. Should be interesting. That was my reaction to it. I said it was wild and that's that. I mean, he did say might. Wow. Guys, if you don't understand how this is a grift, if you don't understand how this is literally grifting off of politics, I'll explain it to you. He's telling libs exactly what they want to hear, which is that Kamala Harris is going to win Iowa. But he does the bareless thin veneer by saying might. But the effect of this is Liv Agar, truth, Permian extinction. Seltzer bros, we're back. If Kamala wins a bunch of unusual states like Iowa and Ohio, the dumb people are definitely going to think it was stolen. LOL. LOL, you had this one loaded and you doubted, you doomed, you didn't trust the process. It's over, Jack. LOL, she's not +3 in Iowa. 16 replies. By the way, Editor Mentum would block me because I would reply things debunking his points. He's the streamer's Nate Silver, but with less integrity. Correct. And Nate Silver actually had some like W's under his belt. Nate Silver had some W's under his belt before he got posted by everybody for some reason. If you want to know why Editor Mentum is popular, is because he basically says, don't worry, liberals, Democrats are going to win. And he threw he put all his chips on Kamala Harris is going to win, and the polls are wrong. Had that worked, he would have looked like an oracle. But there was no evidence to believe it, and I told you that the entire time. Amazing that people like this guy. It's crazy. It's one of those things that actually kind of like makes me go, huh, there really is no fucking accountability for being terrible at this, is there?
All tightly controlled by the president, his inner circle.
Such a bitter dude, LOL. See, by the way, people will call me bitter for pointing out that he lied to you. Ann Seltzer quit polling after the election, by the way. It was her last poll. Best in the biz, by the way. Best in the biz.
Stephen Miller. And again, the strategy seems to be to just try to intimidate and frighten.
Editor Mentum was shitting on Zoran when he was polling at 2% and then acted like he supported him all the way along when he won the primary. I actually did support him. In fact, I said he was going to win before there was a poll showing that he was up. But again, oh well.
People, but that tends to anger people on the ground. So it's a difficult situation. Local officials are then pressured to be seen as standing up to their community. They're facing re-election. They need to show.
Are you covered the ongoing genocide against the Kurds in Syria? 3 million Kurds now being massacred by Al-Qaeda. All 20,000 ISIS terrorists in jails have been released by Al-Qaeda. This is many times bigger than the Gaza and against the socialists. Yeah, Eric, I am trying to figure out what's going on in Syria. I am aware of basically America supporting Al-Qaeda and the Gulf states. If you have good sources and good coverage, I'd be happy to look at it. I am very concerned, I'm not going to lie. But I also don't think you should say the 3 million are being massacred. Syrian forces do not have the capacity that Israel and the United States did against Gaza. That TikTok you made about Zoran is going to win? Oh, yeah, I know.
That they're defending the people of Minneapolis and Minnesota. So it just seems to be an escalatory spiral at this point.
Yeah, certainly. But also think about even just in the last week, the headlines that we've seen. We began last week talking about how there's a potential investigation into the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. He comes out and says, this is a way to try to coerce me into the policy goals that the White House wants. You end the week then with the governor of Minnesota, who also happened to be a 2024 member of the Democratic ticket, saying this is meant to coerce us into a fearful posture to couch what the administration wants on the ground. I think there's something so fundamentally concerning when you continue to see that as the way that this administration is pushing forward. And then you take into consideration the Insurrection Act piece of it. Are there words that you're looking for from the administration, actions that they might take that will signal that this is where it's going?
The word that comes to mind for me is just, again, unprecedented. We were talking about 65 deaths the last time this was done in 1992. It was at the request of the governor of California because the rioting had gotten so out of control. So this is just completely different. It's an astounding use of federal power in a state. And again, it's a sort of a core principle of the Republican Party to respect states' rights. So that's the question. We just have to see what comes out of the White House and what comes from President Trump. But this is the approach he uses. It's very different. But Greenland, he's threatening there, escalating there, not allowing maybe even the people of Greenland basic democratic principles to decide what country they want to be part of. Instead, he's simply telling Denmark and Europe the U.S. is going to buy it. So all of this is just unprecedented, whether it's Minnesota or around the world.
Yeah, the U.S. is going to buy it by coercion methods if necessary, and we're going to dig into that coming up a little bit later in the show. For now, MS Now national security reporter David Rode, thank you, as always, for coming on.
You should make a Substack, Mike. I bet Hassan would promote your analysis more if you did that. Beat Edigermentum at his own game. I'm doing another project right now, chat. You'll be seeing it soon. You'll be seeing it very soon. We're going to be hyping very, very soon. All right, so Donald Trump is threatening Greenland, and he says it's because he didn't win the Peace Prize.
European leaders meet to discuss an emergency response to his new. The president sent a letter to Norway's prime minister. According to a diplomat who's seen the note, he wrote in part, quote, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America." CNN's Melissa Bell joins us live from Paris this morning. The Prime Minister of Norway now saying, yeah, that's the letter I got from President Trump talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a pretty remarkable development.
It's a remarkable...
I should have won the Nobel Peace Prize, but because I didn't, I'm going to take Greenland. I should have won it, and because I'm not, I'm going to steal Greenland.
That struck in that letter, dear Jonas, that fit of pique almost at not having received the Nobel Peace Prize, used as justification for all that we've seen over the course of the weekend. And that is, John, this extraordinary ratcheting up of this pressure on Europe to try and force them essentially to hand over or sell Greenland to the United States, which is an extraordinary turn of events that now tariffs should be being used at this particular moment to try and exert pressure on Europe. And that timing is really unfortunate, John, for a number of reasons. First of all, because in front of European lawmakers was due this week the very deal that was signed last summer to avert a trade war between the United States and Europe, the trade deal that sets American tariffs at 15% and that prevents the European Union from imposing levies on the United States. What we understand now is that European lawmakers are not going to that deal as a result of these renewed threats of fresh tariffs on European Union countries. What that means is that if the deal is not agreed upon, the retaliatory 93 billion euro worth of European counter tariffs that had been threatened at the time before the deal was reached would come into effect in February. So really what you're seeing is the European Union preparing to answer very forcefully after a great deal of outrage expressed over the course of the last couple of days as a result of these renewed threats. The reimposition, therefore, of retaliatory tariffs being prepared even now by the European Commission, even though officially what we've heard this morning from the Commission spokesman, John, is that Europe is looking for de-escalation, they're looking for compromise, dialogue and negotiation, even as they prepare for these very forceful tactics. And beyond the imposition of these frozen retaliatory tariffs lies the possibility of what's been described as the bazooka option. This is the Europeans' anti-coercion tool, which would see an even greater number of limits placed on the United States' access to European markets. So a ratcheting up of the pressure, but a ratcheting up as well of the response, even as negotiation is.
Yeah, talking in ways they really just haven't before. Melissa Bell in Paris this morning. Thank you. With us now is retired Major General James Spider Marks, our friend. He is the geopolitical strategy at Academy Securities.
What the fuck is that? Academy Securities.
How does something like this land overseas? All these European leaders now and officials have been meeting, trying to figure out how to deal with the United States on this issue. And then they see this letter about the Nobel Peace Prize to the Prime Minister of Norway.
Yeah, it doesn't land very well. I mean, when you look at policies like this, or at least moving in this direction, the potential of embracing some type of a policy, I think many would say why it's being done. The United States too should have a much more enhanced relationship with Greenland, albeit we have one established in 1951, an agreement that allows the United States to have military access, and it kind of essentially, in my terms, provides cooperation between those two, one autonomous nation or autonomous entity to Denmark and the United States. So that can be identified and say, yeah, this is a good deal. But when you look at how the present administration is addressing the possibility of enhancing that gets very problematic in my mind. I think, cutting to the chase, the United States is not going to use military power to embrace Greenland or move Greenland in a direction more favorable toward the United States. And again, we already have a favorable relationship. Let's not harm that. But provocative language like this really gets our allies moving in a direction of hazarding what's going to happen to NATO if the United States suddenly says, okay, this is more important. Greenland's more important. This course of action is more important than our relationship to NATO, and NATO will atrophy. It'll become something entirely different than it is right now if the United States is not a part of NATO. So you can connect those dots pretty quickly.
Yeah, let's drill down on that last part you were just saying there. Do the rewards from U.S. control of Greenland, do they merit the risks and the potential damage being done?
One of the things I want to pause and kind of get you to reflect on is, do you notice how CNN has adopted the frame that annexing Greenland is legitimate? They have already accepted the frame that annexing Greenland is legitimate. They're just weighing the cost-benefit analysis. They're like, okay, stealing Greenland would be worth it, but is it worth the cost?
Well, the run is not worth it in the case of a military operation against Greenland. That's why I think it's off the table. Provocative language will always just kind of a negotiating tactic.
This guy does works for an investment bank that does foreign policy on the side. It's all former feds exclusive. So this is basically a CIA cutout, is what you're saying?
So I would say with confidence, the United States is not going to use military force against Greenland. Trying to acquire Greenland in a tighter relationship, certainly there are options. Look, we got Seward's Folly, right?
I told you. I have a video on my channel saying they're gonna get Greenland. I fucking told you. I tweeted the other day about all the times the U.S. purchased land, and a good example of that is the Louisiana Purchase, where Thomas Jefferson gave, what was it, 8 million? I can't remember. How much was Louisiana Purchase? 8 million? How much was the Louisiana Purchase? 15 million. 15 million to France. Now, who did they purchase? Who was actually living on that land? Not the French, okay? There was a lot of indigenous tribes, Native Americans, or no, they weren't Americans yet. Indians, depending upon what people want to say. Some people say they call them Indians. Some people say indigenous. Some people say Native American. I don't know. Okay, the native population. They didn't cede their territory. Yet America waved around the Louisiana Purchase as we kicked them off the land, as if we owned the land. Same thing with Greenland. Even if we hand money over to the Kingdom of Denmark, we will effectively be treating Greenland like we did the continental United States by sweeping aside the self-determination of the Greenlandic people, or Greenlanders.
We bought Alaska. Let's go buy Greenland. There's a seller, we can buy it. Situation.
Thank you, Eric Proletariat.
Certainly there are other relations. Iceland was a part of Denmark as well until 1944, and they became independent, became a member of NATO. That's a potential path for Greenland as well. So in other words, there are options well below the threshold of military operation. Your question is, would military operation obviate a NATO as we know it today? Yeah, sure would.
Be an enormous risk, even if, and maybe even the mere suggestion of it, do things to NATO that maybe the United States long-term want to see happen there. Major General James Spider Marks, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Greenland is dominating the agenda at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And as always, our Richard Quest has his ear to the ground and joins us now from Davos. Great to see you, Richard. I mean, no doubt this is going to be very consequential, the conversation. So what are you hearing? Is President Trump going to get his way when it comes to Greenland?
Well, I don't know on that, and he's certainly not going to get his way on Greenland here. We're a long way off that being. The Europeans are going to be meeting with the president over several issues, including Gaza and the setting up of the Board of Peace there. But the fact that he sent this extraordinary note to the Prime Minister of Norway, linking his muscular approach on Greenland to the fact he didn't get the Peace Prize, and leaving, and now of imposing tariffs, they don't know what to do. You see, here's the problem. There is a course of action, a natural course of action that will follow the implementation of those tariffs. No question about it. You retaliate, you put other measures, you use the trade bazooka. But the Europeans don't want to do it, and they're going to be forced to, because what the United States is doing is unheard of. Despite what former Vice President Vance says, the reality is you can't just go and take another country.
I mean, you can. Again, of course you can. Of course you can. This is why liberals are constantly baffled, because they have a bunch of these rules in their head. You can't take another territory if people are willing to die to defend it. Europeans, are you willing to die to defend Greenland from the United States? You weren't willing to fight to die to defend Ukraine. I have no reason to believe you are going to fight to die to defend Greenland. You were happy to push Ukrainians to do it. You're happy to have Ukrainian nationals grinded up in the meat grinder, but I don't see you deploying. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Europeans will show me metal. And I will, by the way, if the Europeans fight the United States, I'll change my mind about Europe instantly. I will recalculate. That would be the information that would cause me to recalculate Europe. The first American jet shot down, the first American soldier arrested and deported from Greenland, the first time they shut down a U.S. military base or end cooperation or sail aircraft carriers off the shores of Greenland. If the French and the British brought their fleets together and sailed off the coast of Greenland and said, we will die to defend Greenland. Well, then I'll believe it. If all the Europeans assemble themselves in armada and go and sail off the coast of Greenland, then I'll believe it.
So the Europeans are absolutely, hard rock in a hard place, but they will not just roll over and take this.
Yeah. Okay. So very interesting, because we saw the British Prime Minister holding an emergency news conference just hours ago. That's after EU ambassadors hold their own meeting in Brussels. So a lot of conversations that are happening, because US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says, and I quote, Europeans project weakness and the US projects strength. So I wonder if this is going to be a uniting force for the Europeans to come together on the right and the left.
Okay. So firstly, I think the comment by Scott Bessent yesterday was significant, because this does that it's not just the president on a whim of his own, even though if it was, he could force it. This shows that senior administration officials like Scott Bessent, openly or officially, are behind it. That makes it much more difficult for everybody to retaliate against. Then you've got the former vice president you were just hearing about. There is a groundswell of US that says Greenland should be part of the United States. Where they differ is on the methods and the modalities to make it happen. The problem here is the train is leaving the station. The president has shoved everything on board and is sending it careening down. It is going to be very difficult to stop an all-out trade war at this particular rate, because the Europeans cannot, note the word I say, will not, cannot be seen to be weak on this issue.
British Prime Minister.
If the Europeans cave, they lose face, and everybody will see what I see, that they're Eurocucks. Now, I don't say that because I'm trying to insult you. I'm saying it because it's, what do you call the guy who's sitting in the chair when you fuck his girlfriend? It's not an insult, it's a descriptor. I don't call you Eurocucks to rile you up. I call you Eurocucks because it is what it is. Now, I don't want you to be cucked. I want you to stand up to Trump. It would do me good. It would help us out, because the more you guys stood up to Trump, the more Americans are going to get a fucking clue that maybe beating up people and invading countries is making us worse off. The more countries openly hate the U.S., the better that is for the left in America. I want you to stand up to Donald Trump. I want you to stand up to the United States.
Keir Starmer is getting ready to hold a news conference. This comes after Starmer told President Trump on Sunday.
We have a #1 Eurocuck right here, white hat and on. I don't give a shit. He seems too dumb. He's just answering questions like, I think so, I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's capable of abstract thought. Not smart enough to interact with me.
He's wrong for targeting Britain and fellow NATO allies with tariffs. Let's listen together.
Improvised. They were built patiently over time. And while we are pragmatic in how we pursue our interests, we are resolute in defending those values when it matters. So let me begin with the United States. The UK and the US are close allies and close partners. That relationship matters profoundly, not just to our security, but to the prosperity and the stability people here depend upon. Under President Trump, as under previous presidents, we're determined to keep that relationship constructive and focused on results. And that approach is delivering. Through sustained engagement, we've seen significant US investment into the UK economy, running into hundreds of billions of pounds, supporting growth, skills and jobs right across our cooperation on defence, nuclear capability and intelligence remains as close and effective as anywhere in the world, keeping Britain safe in an increasingly dangerous environment. We've secured good trading terms in key sectors, including cars, steel, aerospace, and life science, protecting British jobs and manufacturing. That is why we take the approach that we do, because it delivers concrete outcomes in the national interest. I talk regularly to President Trump, and my team is in daily contact with all the key figures in his administration. These relationships matter. They deliver concrete outcomes in the national interest. Mature alliances are not about pretending differences don't exist. They are about addressing them directly, respectfully, and with a focus on results. On Greenland, the right way to approach an issue of this seriousness is through calm discussion between allies.
What do you mean? Calm discussion? He's trying to steal your territory. How is that an ally? The United States of America saying we're going to impose tariffs on you unless you give us your territory. That's an ally to you? That's an ally to you? Seems like a hostile power bent on seizing your territory. What do you mean ally? You're not an ally. An ally is independent. You're a protectorate. You are a group of people that are forced in an alliance with us for our benefit, not yours. You're not an ally. Allies have sovereignty. Allies are equals. Allies are respected. You are not an ally. You are a vassal. Get on your knees and do as you're told.
Let's be clear, the security of Greenland matters, and it will matter more as climate change reshapes the Arctic, as sea routes open, and strategic competition intensifies. The High North will require greater attention, greater investment, and stronger collective defence. The United States will be central to that effort, and the UK stands ready to contribute alongside our allies through NATO. But there is a principle here that cannot be set aside, because it goes to the heart of how stable and trusted international cooperation works. And so any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. That right is fundamental, and we support it. Denmark is a close ally of the United States, a proud NATO member that has stood shoulder to shoulder with us, including at real human cost in recent decades. Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership. Pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance, nor is it helpful to frame efforts to strengthen Greenland's security as a justification for economic pressure.
We've just been listening to British Prime Minister there, Keir Starmer. He spoke for a little bit more than 30 minutes or so from Downing Street. Just a few takeaways from his comments there. He said mature alliances are not about pretending differences don't exist. They're about addressing them respectfully. He later said any discussion about Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and Denmark. Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnerships, not pressure. He said Britain is a pragmatic country. We look for agreement, but being pragmatic doesn't mean being passive. However, when asked repeatedly, I would say the majority of questions from the press were about the potential for retaliatory tariffs after President Trump's threats. He sort of really shied away from that. I want to continue the conversation now and bring into the discussion, live from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Josh Lipsky, who's Senior Director of the Atlantic Council's Geoeconomic Center. Josh, great to have you this morning. Before we talk about what Keir Starmer just said, I actually want to play for our audience some reporting from Reuters. This is apparently President Trump telling the Norwegian Prime Minister that he no longer feels, quote, an obligation to think about purely of peace after he did not receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Josh, your reaction to that?
Well, we are in a crisis right now, a transatlantic crisis. And I think it's important to understand why the president's social media output over the weekend set off a series of events, which you saw the prime minister just react to. There is division within Europe over how to respond. You saw the EU leaders convening yesterday to think about what kind of retaliatory measures, if any, they will threaten. You just heard from the UK. They don't want to...
that reminds me, chat, before we continue, I wanted to remind you all that tonight, the DSA LA is doing a DSA Ice Watch Community Patrol training, 7 p.m. So this, I believe this is a digital event. So if you want to be trained up on Ice Watch Community Patrols, you should sign up. especially if you're in Southern California.
Put retaliatory measures on the table. The UK and the EU are trying not to escalate, but they're finding increasingly hard to do so. And they don't see the areas right now of off-ramps from the US side. And there's no deal space right now. It's unclear what the US wants outside of getting Greenland for the US. That's a non-starter, as we understand completely from the UK and the EU perspective, certainly from Denmark's perspective. So this is where we are. A disagreement unlike any we've seen in the first Trump term, with him using his favorite economic tool, tariffs, just like he did in the first year of the second.
So, Josh, if tariffs or retaliatory tariffs appear to be off the table, at least from Starmer's comments, what options does Europe have now?
Well, I think Europe is going to have a strong and unified response. We've heard that the EU is preparing a 93 billion euro package. Obviously, that will be not met well at the White House, at Bourbon and Boeing and others, come right into the possibility of what is threatened right there. But I think what's important to understand from that perspective is that in this situation, Europe has tried the de-escalatory path. That hasn't worked so far. And they thought they had a deal, both the UK and the EU, only to wake up Saturday. And so I think you're going to see a much stronger response than you saw any time in the first year of Trump's second term.
This is the presidential candidate that liberals want to defeat Republicans in 2028.
Flags waving into the conversation.
This notion of genocide.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Israel did not commit a genocide in Gaza. There is no standard by which Israel committed a genocide in Gaza, just on a factual level.
Just as a legal and factual level.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of this?
My opinion is I understand the tendency for people to assert that.
Why?
On the basis of the images and the proportionality. As it relates
doesn't mean genocide.
No. And by the way, I agree with you.
And international and proportionality doesn't mean that if you kill my child and I then kill 7 criminals, that I've been disproportionate.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I understand that tendency on the basis trying to reconcile the proportionate nature of how the war was ultimately conducted and the devastation.
I have a question. Why do you feel the need to create a permission structure for that sort of stuff? I mean, meaning it's not.
Yeah.
Why not just say?
I mean, being dog walked by Ben Shapiro on Israel in 2026, the guy can't even get 20,000 views on his channel anymore, and the Democrats are losing to the guy. This is, again, if you just want to know who sucks shit, come talk to me. I'll tell you in 5 minutes. It's not that complicated. And I'm going to need you to be mentally strong, because I'm going to tell you a lot of people, just because they posted an epic own online doesn't mean they're our allies. God, imagine being dog walked by Ben Shapiro. What a fucking worm.
And Josh, we can appreciate that it's a very bustling scene behind you there in Davos. So we appreciate you trying to, get to us and speak to us about this important issue. Let me ask, on the Supreme Court, we are expecting a decision. Really, I mean, we've been waiting for it for weeks now about the legality of President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. Depending on what happens and what comes out of the Supreme Court, how does that impact these new threats of tariffs?
Well, the president's key economic leverage here could be undercut as soon as Tuesday. He's expected here Wednesday in Davos. So think of the dynamic and the volatility. We could get the Supreme Court decision Tuesday. We don't know for sure. They could overrule his authority to use IEPA. That's the threat, the authority he used this weekend. So all that is potentially undercut. Now, that doesn't mean the White House doesn't have backup plan upon backup plan. You heard the prime minister just say, we don't want to wait on the Supreme Court. There's other tariffs the U.S. could try to implement. But make no mistake, if this Supreme Court rules against the president, it will be increasingly destabilizing to a situation that's already volatile right now. And I think the president, seeing that, and if he sees Europe escalate, could threaten even more than we've already seen, the 10%. It reminds me of the tit for tat we got into with China in the spring, if you remember that, in the trade wars last year. And right now we're on that course. That doesn't mean we can't find off-ramps, but they're increasingly hard to see at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Josh, I saw over the weekend some comments from Republican lawmakers who sort of downplayed these threats from Trump and said, look, this is This is art of the deal. This is the beginning of a negotiation. I'm curious if you see it that way too.
I don't, because the question I have is, what's the deal? In the trade situations last year, you really understood that Trump was threatening tariffs. He would lower tariffs, for example, on the UK, in return for them dropping tariffs and investments in the US. Same with the EU. These were the deals that were struck all over the world. But what is the deal with Greenland? Denmark and Europe are not giving away Greenland. They have been completely clear on that point. The president, on the other hand, has been completely clear he wants it, no questions asked. So this, to me, is why it's different and much harder to say this is just Trump negotiating. I don't see the space between them. Now, it may be created. We may find it, perhaps this week in Davos, where many of them will be here in person meeting.
So here's how you fight Trump. You do what the Chinese did. You say, oh, okay, you want to fight with us? We're going to start selling U.S. Treasury bonds, and we're going to keep selling U.S. Treasury bonds. Oh shit, interest rates are 7% in the United States. Uh-oh, spaghetti-o.
But it's a different kind of crisis than the ones we've experienced so far in the second Trump administration.
I mean, is Keir Starmer the person who might be able to find it? I mean, he has had success with Trump in the past, diplomatically. He seems to think that he might be able to reach some sort of agreement here.
Well, I think you could see in that press conference, he was trying to position himself between the U.S. and the EU as the person who could broker this deal. But I also noted from him a sense of uncertainty of what that deal would look like. He said he spoke to the president. He said he didn't think there would be military action. He said he didn't want to threaten UK tariffs. But I didn't hear what the offer would be. I think he wants to play that role, but it also requires the president wanting him to play that role. And that's a very open question.
At the end of the day, chat, the Europeans are in a position of either they learn how to slap America around and stand on their own 2 feet, or we're going to get Greenland. It's really just that simple. All right, chat, I wanted to take my time and laugh at Anna Kasparian and everybody else who did this, like, why I left the left for Trump.
By the way, guys, I'm sorry. I feel guilt every single day that I didn't see this coming.
Political commentator Anna Kasparian.
Imagine if they had just listened to us. Imagine if they had just listened to us, because we were so nice to TYT. I went on TYT multiple times. I was a TYT defender. And then they just went, fuck it. They fell for the dumbest right-wing bait. They got anxious that they were being outflanked. I mean, basically, TYT is the Ro Khanna of the online left. For a period of time, they were as left as it got. But now, the left in America has matured and grown. And we moved to the left because that's clearly the right answers to the questions. And they stood still. And instead of like acting in community with those around them, their narcissism and their ego took over their brains. And they started left punching. And once somebody starts focusing on left punching, they're fucking toast. Now, I don't punch left. I punch down, which is I punch down on anarchists. I'm thinking of the political compass, chat. Oh shit, I don't punch down. Fuck. I was thinking about the political compass and punching on the green section people. But I don't punch down. Anarchists are technically sideways. That's what I'm saying. I punch at people that have bad takes. I became a Mike fan when he said, show me the anarchist aircraft carrier. Well, I mean, exactly. I want to build a world where there is such abundant production and it's in perfect harmony with the natural world. I want to dedicate half the world to be purely wild, if not more. But in human society, there should be hyperabundance. And we're not getting that if I learn how to spin flax or whatever the fuck anarcho-primitivist bullshit people are confused about.
Progressive network The Young famously a few years ago declared herself unaligned and spent the run-up to the 2024 election gracing right-wing challenge, but to find common ground with them, the ground right over the bodies of people.
Is it bad that I don't want to see a dick?
Can I just say, and here's something that you need to understand, is with all this exposure, with all of this propaganda, with all of this right-wing sellout that they've been doing, not growing the channel, and they spam videos. They add fucking 15 videos a day for 70,000. God damn, that's so little. They have that's 70,000. Excuse me, I misread. 70,000 videos they've posted. 70,000 videos? Jesus Christ. 640,000 views on 15 videos. God damn, that's a lot of spam.
Don't want to see a dick. Is that bad?
No.
Anna is now having a bit and apologizing all of the fascism, calling Trump a fascist.
They're so lucky that Hassan's nephew, Hassan is the nephew of Jank. They're so fucking lucky, dude. They're so fucking lucky. The real Nepo baby is Jank at this point. Like, if TYT is allowed to, like, rehabilitate itself, it'll be because of basically Hassan's familial love.
By the way, guys, I knew Trump was going to be bad. I didn't like, just because, when I hear the word fascist, I think of fascism is a specific ideology. So when Jake and I got into that debate about whether or not Trump is fascist leading up to the election, notion of a fascist. Because look, if we're just going to use fascist toward anyone we dislike, all right, then the word doesn't actually mean anything.
Okay, what do you want me to say, Anna? You want me to say wannabe dictator?
Sure, you can say wannabe dictator, but I don't even think he wants to be a dictator.
Of course he does. That's what you do when you lose an election and you go, oh, I got fake electors and I'd like to terminate the Constitution and bring out the tanks and use martial law against American citizens and shoot protesters. I mean, if that's not fascist, then I guess the word just shouldn't exist.
Was he able to do those things? There wasn't evidence to suggest that he
Losing a debate to Jank.
Or believes in a fascist ideology. I've seen now multiple videos of innocent people who are they're not obstructing, they're not getting involved, they're doing nothing other than standing kind of like away off to the side and filming ICE as they're, raining terror on people. And the ICE agents walk up to them and literally knock them to the ground. American citizens. I'm sorry, I feel guilt every single day that I didn't see this coming. I'm such an idiot.
Ergo is a fascist. Sorry, you forgot to finish your thought there, but otherwise beautifully said, especially that latter.
I'm such an idiot.
Now, credit where credit is due. It takes guts to admit when you are wrong. But as someone who was booted from the TYT for pointing out colorfully that coddling the right was no way to advance democracy. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm the most
tweeting at Elon Musk. Please
whatever.
don't help me. I find myself a little and quite unsatisfied. And at the risk of making this egomaniac retreat on her own words, she after all has been known to shape her beliefs based on what commentary is made about her. I do think it's important. How did you not see back in the heady days of 2024 and 2025 when TYT wasn't quite sure when the next Peter Thiel funded Polymarket Cash?
Live from the Polymarket Studios. What is this? Well, we got a new sponsor, Polymarket.
Anna spent a lot of time soft-pedaling a fake populist who had already very much enjoyed and one violent to say nothing of Serengeti of white national who killed Heather Heyer. And also, never forget the defining feature of fascism is corporate power. And in Trump's first term, he gave the rich a massive tax at 1.9. But other than all of that, how would we know that Trump was going his second term? It's not like there was playbook, with some ominous name like Project 2025 written by a bunch of Trump and Vance best spelled it all out.
Trump has very aggressively disavowed 2025. Portions of Project 5, namely on immigration policy, that Trump does campaigns heavily on. Well, there's a lot he doesn't agree with that's in that document and said that he won't actually pursue. And are we going to pretend like Trump read a 900-page document?
Yeah, that was a real excuse that Trump can't read. Well, guess what? Neither can the ICE Gestapo, but that's not stopping them from murdering people in the streets. The one time Anna chose to believe, to hear what she wanted to soothe the mean comments online, deafeningly wrong. Project 2025 was the playbook, did call for everything we're seeing right now. Expansion of ICE funding, mandatory detention of all immigrants, a massive buildup of 100,000 new beds to house those immigrants, and an elimination of programs like TPS and punishing any state that doesn't comply with the above. Check, 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 check. But was that okay with her so long as they were doing it? Because did anyone else notice that part of the apology?
And the ICE agents walk up to them and literally knock them to the ground. American citizens.
Project 2020 sparing an amount of time on obsessed with there only being 2 genders. And yes, by executive order, there are now only 2 genders. And gender ideology is being criminalized. And oh cute, the feds are now investigating schools for possible trans athletes. But I digress. Trump 2.0 has also ingratiated him with billionaires of
I mean, we don't even need to go through the whole list, do we? Do we really need to go through the whole list? If you thought Donald Trump was some sort of populist, you're a fucking dope. I could almost find it charming in 2016 because of your naivete. But to fall for it in 2024 after being involved in politics for 15 years, I mean, you do not have the wattage to be on television anymore. Quit.
Let the richest man on earth hollow out the government and then redirect funds to himself. And oh yeah, they passed the big fugly bill enshrining those 2017 tax cuts. This person has been doing, and look, I get it. The brain gets cooked. Or maybe it's getting lazy and sees what it wants to see to go on the shows that it wants. But she did a massive threw leftists and progressives under the bus, and it's only a matter of time. Which, by the way, Anna, did you ever catch that undocumented started the LA Wild? No? Hey, if you want more drama and backstory, watch these 2 videos.
All right, chat, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call it today. Thank you so much for all of the support. You guys are the best. We're at 7,992 subs, 8 away from 8,000. Because God forbid I took a couple days off. Get Francesca back on. Such a good idea. All right. Who am I sending you to? Oh, I know who, chat. Friend of the show. You've seen her tunes in our opening music playlists. Ollie. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Solidarity forever, my friends. There's all the links. I'm dead. I'm tired. I didn't sleep. I went to bed late last night. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Solidarity forever, my friends. And I'll see you soon. Make sure you go check out my video that's going mega viral in China. All right, everybody. Stay safe. I'll see you soon. Peace out. Say hi to Ollie for me. Free Palestine.